Chapter 231. There was a faint light in Chi Yu's eyes. Sensing that his companions had left, he became more relaxed. Although he knew that he was no match for Chi Yu was not worried at all. Even if he could not defeat Chi Yu, he could still escape at the last moment. Chi Yu was furious. Although he had the ability to stop the golden-winged eagle from flying away, he did not dare to appear in front of hundreds of golden-winged eagles when they were flying together. After all, this kind of superior fierce beast was very strong. Moreover, there was an enemy with the Xianyuan's sword eyeing him covetously. Who knew what the result would be? Therefore, Chi Yu could only vent his anger on Chi Yu in front of him. The silver light shone like a blade. Chi Yu raised the Pangu axe high. Under the illumination of the silver light emitted by the axe, Chi Yu's body was completely dyed silver. The huge energy light made Chi Yu look even more tyrannical. Since his subordinates could no longer catch up with the Zodiac army, they all raised their heads and looked at their leader in the air, waiting for Chi Yu to kill the enemy's commander, Chi Yu. The energy of the Pangu axe was increasing almost uncontrollably. Chi Yu knew that in his anger, Chi Yu was probably going to use the special ability of the Pangu axe. Although he did not know what he was going to use, he knew that it must be a super attack on the same level as the Xianyuan 8 laws. Although Chi Yu now had the opportunity to escape, he did not want to escape. However, he didn't want to run, because he still wanted to try and see how big of a gap there was between him and Chi Yu when they used their ultimate moves at the same time. Was there a chance that he could defeat Chi Yu? The black scales all over his body began to change. Chi Yu's gaze also became focused, and the huge energy aura instantly increased. At this moment, all he could do was use his most powerful power. A layer of dark red light enveloped his body. The infinite changes of the Big Dipper realm could not only be used on a large scale, but it could also be used directly on his own body. This was something Chi Yu had figured out during this period of training. There were many variations in the Jade Pearl Realm technique, and one of them was what Chi Yu liked the most, and that was the increase in energy. When he reached the 7 cloud level and truly experienced the profound mysteries of the Jade Pearl domain, he discovered that the Jade Pearl domain's laws were extremely profound. The amplification effect was not only useful when using the domain on a large scale, but it could also be used on the user. Moreover, the domain could also be used on the user. Once the effect was displayed, not only would it increase the energy that he released, but it would also increase the energy within him. Therefore, there was only one thought in Chi Yu's mind at this time. Although he didn't know if he could succeed or if it would be too much of a burden on his body if he succeeded, he still decided to give it a try. After all, it wasn't easy to face such a powerful opponent. Under such circumstances, it would definitely be beneficial for him to increase his strength if he was able to surpass the limits of his abilities in the past. Of course, Chi Yu was not impulsive enough to think that he could definitely defeat Chi Yu. As a mature man, he still left a way out for himself, and his way out was obviously Little Peng. Ting Ting, can you hear my voice? Wake up, let's fight against a powerful enemy together once again. Calling out with his heart, Chi Yu completely withdrew his mental strength into his body and used the Kirin armor as a foundation to form a layer of boundary. His heart was completely immersed in the huge energy in his body and his perception of the Xianyuan sword. A faint golden light gradually began to appear on Chi Yu's demon-like body. With a faint moan, Wen Ting's soul once again awakened. She didn't say much because she had already sensed everything in the outside world. A scorching airflow burned in his heart. It was the energy that Wen Ting had left for him. With the Kirin red hidden between Chi Yu's eyebrows as a medium, it suddenly burned. His long silver hair instantly turned crimson. The Kirin bead turned golden, and the Kirin red diamond on his forehead suddenly shot out a red light. In an instant, it shone on every inch of his skin. Then, the broken Kirin mirror flew out from his left hand, and the Kirin illusion flew out from his right hand. The three energies simultaneously condensed towards the Kirin bead. The huge energy spread in an instant. The four colors of gold, silver, red and black were replaced by light ribbons, enveloping Chi Yu's body. His long crimson-red hair continued to extend behind him and only stopped when it reached his feet. Suddenly, a reddish-gold light instantly erupted from the Kirin bead. It merged with Chi Yu's and Wen Ting's energy, forming a ball of light that stopped in front of Chi Yu's chest. A sonorous sound appeared. A solid reddish-gold chest armor covered Chi Yu's firm chest muscles. It merged perfectly with the original Kirin armor. Then, the chest armor separately extended up and down. Up, it extended to the broad shoulder armor. Down, it covered Chi Yu's waist. The huge energy spread in an instant. The reddish-gold light flowed to every corner of Chi Yu's body. An incomparably gorgeous reddish-gold armor took shape. Every part of Chi Yu's body was covered perfectly. The huge energy aura continued to spread from his body. On the reddish-gold armor, blood-red lines appeared as if there was blood flowing within. A pair of reddish-gold wings suddenly unfurled from Chi Yu's back. The wings were the same size as before. However, the reddish-gold light shining on them was extraordinarily bright. Every single reddish-gold feather had lines clearly visible. The huge energy aura spread in an instant. However, it was not over yet. At the same time the reddish-gold wings appeared, a layer of dark red light suddenly lit up behind Chi Yu. That was the energy aura of Kirin hidden. Then, the dark red light had already transformed into a pair of dark red wings. It appeared below the reddish-gold wings. Together with the black wings that the Kirin armor had obtained after the second stage of mutation, there were a total of 3 pairs of 6 wings. At the same time, they appeared behind him and extended outwards. At the top were the reddish-gold wings. At the bottom were the black wings. The dark red Kirin hidden's wings appeared at the bottom. A layer of reddish-gold light appeared in front of Chi Yu, covering his face. The light of the sun, moon, and stars shone from his body. With layers of light and shadow, they merged into the reddish-gold armor. Instantly, the blood-red lines on the reddish-gold armor began to circulate. On the smooth surface of the armor, patterns of the sun, moon, and stars appeared. The starry sun crimson gold armor. Yes. This heaven-defying transformation used Chi Yu's 4 auspicious clouds, inked Kirin's body as the foundation, Wen Ting's giant beast relic as the guide, and the 1000 transformation Xuanji realm technique as the amplification. Although Chi Yu only had the power of the 7 clouds, at this moment, he still used this ultimate ability. The starry sun crimson gold armor gave Chi Yu an incomparably huge amount of energy. At this moment, all the discomfort in his body had disappeared. It was as if there was only endless power in his body. Chi Yu could not help but feel a little intoxicated by the enormous energy aura. How he wished that there would be a day when he could truly use such an ability. The light of the sun, moon, and stars on the armor constantly flashed illusory. The 6 wings on his back also constantly flapped rhythmically. Every time they flapped, they gave him more energy. Even though this power could only be maintained for a very short period of time, Chi Yu was very clear that every time he used the starry sun crimson gold armor, he would become more familiar with it. At the same time, it would also allow him to train his energy fusion time. The 6 wings of reddish gold, black, and dark red gave Chi Yu endless power. The Xianyuan sword did not have Xuanyuan's soul, but it had obtained enough power to support it. The golden light instantly became more than 10 times brighter than before. The king's aura of the Xianyuan sword finally forced back the domineering aura of the Pengu axe in midair. Both sides were facing each other, and no one could gain the upper hand. Chi Yu's eyes were filled with surprise when he saw the starry sun crimson gold armor on Chi Yu. He could not sense the energy attribute of Chi Yu's body. This was what he was most afraid of. Not being able to figure out his opponent's strength was the last thing he wanted to see. However, at this moment, in front of so many subordinates and facing his old enemy, the Xianyuan sword, it was impossible for him to give up this battle even if he wanted to. With a loud roar, Qi Yu's body instantly doubled in size. At this moment, his handsome face had already become somewhat ferocious. The energy within his body was like an explosion as it continuously appeared on the Pangu axe. He raised the Pangu axe with both hands and shouted, "Genesis Splitter!" The huge axe blade expanded 10 times in the blink of an eye. It was as if the world had been split open by this axe. The huge energy made the world lose its color. Although this was not the most powerful skill of the Pangu axe, it was the most famous skill. According to legend, the great god Pangu had used the Pangu axe to create this world with the power of Genesis Splitter. His reddish-gold hair fluttered behind his head. Feeling the huge energy aura in front of him, Qi Yu did not panic. The 6 wings on his back were fully extended to both sides of his body. Seeing the incomparably powerful energy of the Pangu axe falling from the sky, his body's Qi activity was completely locked by the overbearing energy of the Pangu axe. It seemed that the Pangu axe was only attacking in a line. However, Qi Yu, who was familiar with the divine weapon, knew that no matter how he dodged, it was impossible to avoid the attack of the powerful divine weapon in front of him, which could create an entire world. Seeing the huge energy appear, he also moved. He slowly raised the Xianyuan sword in his hand over his head. A golden light erupted from the sword blade, completely covering his body. At this moment, the sun, the moon, and the stars simultaneously separated from the sword blade and rapidly rotated around the Xianyuan sword. Qi Yu calmly looked at Qi Yu in front of him. He held the huge hilt of the Xianyuan sword with both hands. The tip of the sword slowly pulsated. The golden sword shadow seemed to be very different from the light that erupted from the Pangu axe. However, the golden sword shadow was so real, as if the Xianyuan sword had suddenly become countless. The sword blade fell down slightly, and Qi Yu's body instantly transformed into a strange shape. Like a big bow, he slightly bent backward, and the tip of the Xianyuan sword in his hand had already picked up the surface of the Pangu axe that was rapidly chopping down. In an instant, the light of the sun, the moon, and the stars suddenly fused with the sharp tip of the Xianyuan sword. The golden light erupted, and Qi Yu's arms seemed to be abnormally stiff, as if they were carrying 1,000 pounds of weight. No loud clashing noises were heard, and no energy shockwaves were generated. Pangu's world-splitting axe was easily picked up by Qi Yu's Xianyuan sword. It seemed that Pangu didn't even spend any effort on it. The dazzling light of the Pangu axe quietly slid down from around Qi Yu's body. Following a thunderous boom, countless Jili people's warriors were turned into ashes by the Pangu axe. Even the narrow valley down below was split into 2 by Pangu's world-splitting axe. The deep ravine looked so deep, and a strong sense of power had been lingering in it. Without Qi Yu's order, the 3 Nali warriors, who were filled with fear, immediately called their warriors and fled away. At this moment, they realized that in a fight between Qi Yu and Qi Yu, people like them were not fit to stay and watch. It was hard to say when it would bring about a fatal disaster. Qi Yu and Qi Yu brushed past each other. At this moment, both the Pangu axe and the Xianyuan sword were dimmed. Qi Yu and Qi Yu stood with their backs facing each other. On the surface, Qi Yu's chest had been rising and falling slightly, while his eyes had been sparkling with the light of astonishment. Until now, he still didn't understand why Qi Yu could handle his world-splitting axe so easily. Judging from the previous battle, his opponent's strength was clearly below his own. Could it be that the appearance of that suit of armor had caused his strength to surpass his own? Or was the difference between the Pangu axe and the Xianyuan sword truly so great? Qi Yu was confused, but the intent of killing grew stronger and stronger. He would never allow an enemy among human beings who could threaten him to such a great extent. Sensing Qi Yu's power, Qi Yu released more and more energy. The silver light shone brightly once again, while the power released from the Pengu axe grew fiercer and fiercer. "Can you tell me the name of that sword move?" "I don't think I've seen Emperor Huang use it before," Qiyu said coldly. Qiyu didn't turn around, but his arms were trembling slightly. At this moment, he was covered in sweat under the crimson golden armor of Lunasolar. Was the world-splitting move really that easy to block? If that was the case, God Pengu wouldn't have been able to use it to create this world. It was extremely difficult for Qiyu to use the sword move just now with the energy he had. Fortunately, he had the help of the crimson golden armor of Lunasolar. Otherwise, he definitely wouldn't have succeeded. Even now, he felt like he was dreaming. Of course, the sword move is called shifting stars. Even the stars and the moon can change their positions in this sword move, let alone the attack of your Pengu axe. Qiyu used the 6 wings on his back to absorb the energy molecules in the air as he tried his best to speak calmly. Right now, he really wanted to use the conversation to stall for time. Even with the protection of the crimson golden armor of Lunasolar, the previous attack of the world-splitting axe still made him feel like his organs were on fire. Stellar transposition? That should be one of the 8 techniques of the Xianyuan sword. The Pengu axe had a total of 7 techniques left behind by God Pengu. The Xianyuan sword had an additional technique, which was the 8th technique. It was also because of this that the Pengu axe was ranked slightly lower than the Xianyuan sword among the 10 great divine weapons. In terms of power, any one of the Pengu axe's moves would be stronger than the Xianyuan sword at the same position. It's a pity that there's one less technique. However, I don't believe that the 8th technique of the Xianyuan sword can really be stronger than the 7th technique of my Pengu axe. Which technique did you use just now? Qiyu said disdainfully. You really don't believe it? I'm afraid you really believe it in your heart. Shifting stars is one of the 8 techniques of the Xianyuan sword. It is the 7th technique and second only to the last technique. You should have experienced it by now. Although I can't use the 8th technique. However, with your current strength, how many of the 7 techniques can you use? I really want to know. What? The 7th technique? No, that's impossible. Qiyu suddenly turned around and looked at Qiyu, who had also turned around. His eyes were filled with disbelief. Back then, Emperor Huang relied more on the power of the Xianyuan sword itself. However, he was unable to unleash the true power of the Xianyuan sword. Qiyu was very clear about this. However, the successor of Emperor Huang suddenly told him that he had just dealt with his heaven-splitting earth technique. It was actually the 8th technique of the Xianyuan sword. No wonder he was so relaxed. However, he found it hard to believe and was unwilling to believe that this was the truth. It was just as Qiyu had said. Right now, he could only barely execute the 4th move of the 7 heaven-splitting techniques, and the strongest of the 7 heaven-splitting techniques were the last 3 moves. But the opponent was able to execute the 8th move, so it was obvious that his strength was much stronger than his. If that was really the case, then the result of the battle would probably be. Qiyu smiled calmly and said, "What? You don't believe me? It's actually very simple. The revolving star passage technique is the 7th technique. It's up to you whether you believe it or not. As the wielder of the Xianyuan sword, I can't lie in front of this ancient divine weapon. If that's the case, I'm not worthy of being its wielder." Indeed, Qiyu did not lie. He had executed the 7th technique of the Xianyuan 8 techniques, the revolving star passage technique. However, what Qiyu did not know was that within the Xianyuan 8 techniques, the 7th technique, the revolving star passage technique, was not a single technique. It was divided into 2 stages. The first stage required 10% of the entire technique's energy, while the second stage was the true attack. The so-called revolving star passage technique was to instantly activate the true power of the stars and moon. With the power of the stars and moon as the foundation, and the Xianyuan sword as the sharpness, it was an attack that could destroy the heavens and earth. With Qiyu's current strength, let alone the seventh technique. He could not even execute the third technique. However, in the previous battle with Chi-Yu, when he saw the heaven-splitting earth-splitting technique coming towards him, he knew that even if he managed to execute the second technique that he had just learned, because he did not have the support of the Xianyuan sword and his energy was much weaker than his opponent, it would be very difficult for him to block that domineering technique. In the face of immense pressure, Chi-Yu's brain was always the most agile. Just as the crisis was approaching, his mind suddenly flashed, and he thought of the seventh technique of the Xianyuan 8 techniques, the revolving star passage technique. Of course he could not use such a powerful attack, otherwise, with Chi-Yu's current strength, he would have long been blasted to smithereens by the power of the stars and moon. However, even though he could not fully execute this technique, but because the revolving star passage technique was the only technique in the Xianyuan 8 techniques that was split into 2 parts, so when Chi-Yu used his full strength, it actually allowed him to display the first part of the technique. After all, the revolving star passage technique was the 7th technique of the Xianyuan 8 technique. It must be known that the difference between each technique of the Xianyuan 8 techniques and the previous technique was not as simple as 1 + 1 = 2. Even though it was only 1/10 of the 7th technique's power, with the special characteristics of the revolving star passage technique, this technique could be considered as the best of all techniques. Although the heaven-splitting earth-splitting technique was extremely powerful, under the effects of the revolving star passage technique, it still deviated from its original attacking direction. Although its power was still there, it could no longer lock onto Chi-Yu's body. It was precisely because of this that Chi-Yu almost perfectly dispelled Chi-Yu's tyrannical attack while losing the least amount of energy. At the same time, he also used the name of the 7th technique to scare his opponent. This gave him ample time to catch his breath. Looking at Chi-Yu, Chi-Yu's gaze started to waver. However, he was after all a powerful demon god. Although he was a little hesitant, the speed at which he condensed his energy increased. Regardless of whether his opponent was strong or weak, he needed to display his strength. Either he killed Chi-Yu or he escaped. As long as he could preserve his own life, he could not care less about the Zhili people's army. Chi-Yu slowly raised the Xianyuan sword in his hand. He realized that when he stimulated his body with the energy of the source of nature in the form of needles, he could greatly stimulate his own potential. The energy in his body was also completely condensed under the effect of the crimson golden armor of Lunasolar. That huge amount of compressed energy was like an energy block that powered the crimson golden armor of Lunasolar. He took a deep breath. As his soul merged with Wenting's, the energy in his body once again rose to a new height. He did not even feel the slightest sense of exhaustion. Using the same crimson golden armor of Lunasolar, Chi-Yu was obviously much stronger than when he opened the space-time tunnel previously. Even without the assistance of the 6 Zodiac Guardian God warriors like last time, the strength of the armor's energy was still maintained. After a month of training, not only did the strength of all the Zodiac Guardian warriors and the members of the 12 Zodiac small teams greatly improved, but Chi-Yu himself also benefited a lot. At the beginning of the training, after arranging everyone's training, Chi-Yu would absorb the spiritual energy of nature alone. As the source of nature, Chi-Yu's strength improved greatly in the environment of the ancient beast. His daily training gave him a new feeling. After a month, not only did his source of nature recover to its previous best state, but it also improved to a certain extent. Even Chi-Yu did not know to what extent his source of nature had improved. But one thing was for sure, ever since he became a Zodiac Guardian warrior, he had never been as strong as he was now. But one thing was for sure, ever since he became a Zodiac Guardian warrior, he had never been this strong. Later on, at the frozen spring, Chi-Yu used up almost all his nature energy and mind power to help the Zodiac army absorb all the energy in the frozen spring. However, even he didn't know that during the whole absorption process, He had used up all his nature energy and mind power. Although he was helping everyone to absorb the energy, he had also benefited greatly, because he had used up all his nature energy and mind power. When every member of the Zodiac army absorbed the energy in the frozen spring, Chi-Yu could get some of it. Because of this, he was able to reach the 7th cloud realm with the help of the huge amount of energy. After helping everyone to absorb the energy, Chi-Yu's body was indeed very empty. However, it wasn't because of the lack of energy, but because of the excessive consumption of nature energy and mind power. The consumption of nature energy this time was completely different from when Yamu absorbed the source of nature. Chi-Yu's body was like a water tank. Last time, the water tank was destroyed. This time, he just used up all the water in the tank. After a few days of adjustment and absorbing nature energy, the water tank was filled up again. Because of the previous consumption, the water tank had evolved and its capacity was even bigger. When the water tank was filled up, coupled with the energy in the frozen spring that he had absorbed, there was a qualitative change in his strength. During the process of cultivating the 4 types of thundercloud force, not only did he break through the 7th cloud realm, but he was also approaching the 8th cloud realm at an extremely fast speed. Although Chi-Yu did not know that he had improved so much, after using the crimson golden armor of sun, moon, and stars, the various energies in his body naturally fused under the effect of this ultimate transformation. This was also why he did not lose the crimson golden armor of sun, moon, and stars due to exhaustion after using the first stage of the 7th technique of the 8 techniques of the Xianyuan 8 techniques, revolving star passage. The light on the Xianyuan sword became more and more intense. With the support of the solar lunisolar golden armor, its king's aura was released again. The 3 pairs of wings on its back, black, red and gold, and dark red, flapped gently. The energy molecules were almost clearly absorbed into its body. Chi-Yu was very calm. Facing Chi-Yu, who was obviously stronger than him, he didn't have any intention of retreating. Chi-Yu's eyes flashed fiercely. He raised the giant Pengu axe again. He was really unwilling to admit defeat. After so many years of hard work and suffering, he finally obtained the Pengu axe that could compete with the Xianyuan sword. He really couldn't believe that the young man in front of him could compete with his strength. Therefore, he decided to give it a try. Otherwise, if he lost again, all his hopes would be in vain. The Jili people couldn't possibly defeat the humans with Chi-Yu around. The fierceness in his eyes became more and more intense. After making up his mind, Chi-Yu's true colors of the demon god were revealed. The black armor on his body emitted a layer of dark purple light. The white hair on his head stood up. He stared at Chi-Yu with his ferocious eyes. As he continued to channel energy into the Pengu axe, the silver light became more and more intense. Previously, if one were to watch the battle between the 2 powerhouses, who represented the Jili people and the humans, from a distance away, many people would misunderstand that they were brothers who were wielding a sword and a battle axe respectively. After all, at that time, they were both wearing black armor, and there wasn't much difference between their silver hair and white hair. However, things were completely different now. Chi-Yu was like the sun that shone with a reddish gold light, while Chi-Yu was like the moon that shone with a pure white moonlight. What they displayed was a scene of the sun and the moon competing for brilliance. This was something that no one could have imagined. Chi-Yu took a deep breath. He had already made up his mind. Regardless of the outcome of the next attack, he had to leave this place. In terms of overall strength, Chi-Yu was much stronger than him. Even if there wasn't much of a difference between the divine weapons, the difference in the power of the origin was extremely obvious. He only wanted to test how big the gap between him and Chi-Yu was. At the same time, he also wanted to make a breakthrough in his ability under the pressure that Chi-Yu brought him. Lin! Chi-Yu shouted loudly. The Xianyuan sword in his hand moved in an inverted T-shape and circled behind him. Using the strength of his waist and back, He circled the giant sword in the air and raised it again. Instantly, the Xianyuan sword in his hand disappeared. What appeared in his hands had already become a golden sun. The dazzling golden light and the silver light released by the Pangu axe intersected and shone brilliantly. A huge amount of energy condensed in Chi Yu's body. It was full of compressive energy. With the help of the solar lunisolar cosmic crimson gold armor, it had already surpassed the Xianyuan soul's judgment of Chi Yu. Back then, the Xianyuan soul had once said that even if Chi Yu had reached the Nine Clouds realm, even if he had the identity of the four auspicious clouds in Kirin, he could only use the first three of the 8 laws of Xianyuan. However, the Xianyuan soul had never really seen the magic of the four auspicious clouds in Kirin. He was the first powerhouse in the history of the Kirin clan. The surprises that Chi Yu had brought to everyone were simply too many. His strength could not be judged by common sense at all. The improvement of the four auspicious clouds in Kirin's ability was not only similar to that of Kirin. At the same time, because of the four auspicious clouds, every time he leveled up, even if it was not equivalent to 4 times that of an ordinary Kirin, it was at least 2 times. This situation became even more obvious after he reached the 7 clouds. Therefore, even if he only had the 7 clouds now, with the many treasures of Kirin and the special and incomparably magical energy of the source of nature, he was fully capable of using the second sword of the 8 laws of Kirin. Chapter 232. The radiance of the Xianyuan sword became more and more intense. Chi Yu closed his eyes. He didn't need to look at it now. His spiritual energy and the radiance of the Xianyuan sword were enough to guide him. The tyrannical sharpness, under the influence of the huge amount of energy, continued to increase. The sharp energy had already engulfed his body completely. At this moment, the sky suddenly turned into 2 suns. The lower one was already like a meteor. With a dazzling reddish-gold tail flame, it crashed towards Chi Yu. This was the second technique of the Xianyuan 8 techniques, Meteor Chases the Moon. The unity of heaven and man allowed Chi Yu to become a part of heaven and earth under the guidance of the Xianyuan sword. While destroying the enemy, he would receive the support of heaven and earth. As long as the energy was directed at something ordinary, it wouldn't bring about huge destructive power. However, as the second technique, Meteor Chases the Moon, was different. This time, it wasn't the unity of heaven and man. Under the effect of Meteor Chases the Moon, the energy Chi Yu completed was the unity of man and sword. With the help of the power of heaven and earth, the energy of the Xianyuan sword became as huge as a meteor under the effect of a special method of activation. The destructive power of this sword was like a meteor, which was a special case of the sun, moon, and stars. It had a special attacking power. It was a destructive power. Perhaps it was because Chi Yu had some special understanding of the power of the stars when he used the first stage of the revolving stars passage technique. At this moment, when he used Meteor Chases the Moon, he didn't encounter any difficulties. Everything happened naturally. The energy in his body was completely condensed into a point through the reddish-gold armor and the 6th on his back. This incomparably powerful point then passed through his right arm, which was Kirin's arm. It was quickly transferred into the Xianyuan sword. As the sword swung, the Xianyuan sword, under the effect of such a huge point, appeared Meteor Chases the Moon. The energy in the sword and Chi Yu's energy completely merged into one. At this moment, any obstacle that appeared in front of him could only become an enemy. Chi Yu took a deep breath as he watched the golden meteor crash toward him. He recognized this sword. Back then, although Huang Emperor had not been able to unleash the true power of Meteor Chases the Moon, due to the Chi Yu between Huang Emperor and Xuanyuan's soul, he had sacrificed a portion of his life force to unleash part of the power of Meteor Chases the Moon. That time, Chi Yu was severely injured by the meteor chasing the moon, and his subordinates were all severely injured. At the same time, thousands of Jili people were engulfed by the light of the meteor. Therefore, Chi-Yu had a deep memory of this second method. He raised the Pengu axe. It was filled with domineering energy. The huge axe gave Chi-Yu a huge boost in confidence. Chi-Yu was using the second style of the Xianyuan 8 laws. He was using it for the following battles. It was also the second move of the Pengu axe's 7 moves of splitting the heavens. Silver light from all directions condensed into a spiral on the surface of the axe. At this moment, it was not just domineering energy that appeared. The twisted light converged to form a long, twisted dragon that circled around the axe. Chi-Yu bellowed. 7 styles of splitting the heavens. Second style, Pengu opens the dragon. He raised the huge Pengu axe high. When the axe fell, the twisted dragon had already appeared. At this moment, just as Chi-Yu had been engulfed by the light of Xuanyuan's sword, Chi-Yu's body also disappeared in the silver light of the Pengu axe. 2 huge balls of light, one gold and one silver. They suddenly collided in mid-air. Amidst the violent explosion, heaven and earth trembled. There were no dark clouds in the sky. However, the light of the sun was very dim. What about the ground? It was like a confrontation between the sun and the moon, which brought a huge disaster to the ground. Under Chi-Yu's deliberate action, the valley where the Jili people were stationed was affected the most. Naturally, this was the place that suffered the most damage. 2 rays of light, gold and silver, mixed in the air. It was not only a duel between the ancient demonic god Chi-Yu and the disciple of Emperor Huang, Chi-Yu, but also a duel between the Xianyuan sword and the Pengu axe. The 2 rays of light entangled in the air and scattered in all directions. The arc-shaped energy shock wave was clearly visible. The huge energy wave was like an earthquake wave, cleansing every corner of the ground. The huge narrow valley had already been left with a deep ravine by the Pengu axe. At this moment, with the ravine as the center, a devastating destructive energy instantly erupted. The enormous energy, the incomparably terrifying energy, easily swallowed the entire valley. Gravel, fine powder, and a mushroom cloud of dust rose into the air. The gold and silver figures disappeared into the mushroom cloud of dust at the same time. A violent earthquake was triggered by their collision. Not only the valley in front of them, but the surrounding mountains and the ground were also affected. In an instant, the ground within a radius of 100 miles was filled with countless deep cracks. Terrifying, this was the power of absolute terror. Perhaps it was because the energy was too strong, or perhaps it was because of the aftermath of the collision between the divine weapons. When the mushroom cloud rose to its highest point, a gust of strong wind blew and swept the dust away. The Jili people's army was actually very lucky. Due to the powerful effect of Chi-Yu's heaven and earth splitting slash, the Li people who were leading the army were extremely shocked. Chi-Yu was a demonic god, and he was not a kind person. He would not hold back his attack because of his subordinate. The Li people knew Chi-Yu's style very well. Therefore, when the heaven and earth splitting slash brought about such a huge effect, the Li people hurriedly mobilized all the troops and quickly retreated from the other side of the narrow valley. The battle between Chi-Yu and Chi-Yu had paused for a while, but the arrival of the Zodiac army had caused most of the Jili people's army to be mobilized. Therefore, this retreat was very fast. Only some of the slower ones were engulfed by the aftermath of the crazy explosion. Light had returned to the world, and the sun seemed to have regained its vitality. The silver figure was the first to appear. Chi-Yu looked a little disheveled. A layer of extremely fine cracks had appeared on the black armor on his body. Although these cracks could not really destroy the armor, it was enough to prove how violent the collision had been. He panted heavily, and his right hand, which was holding the Pengu axe, was even trembling slightly. His originally handsome face had become even more ferocious. An ominous glint flashed in his eyes, and the standing white hair on his head fell down his back once again. His aura became extremely unstable. It seemed like he could explode at any time. Following closely behind his silver figure, another black figure appeared. Compared to Chi-Yu, Chi-Yu was much more miserable. After the intense collision, the solar lunisolar cosmic crimson gold armor on his body had disappeared due to the lack of energy. Right then, the black armor on his body could only maintain the first stage of origin mutation, barely supporting his body. The 6 wings on his back had turned into a lone golden wing. That was the ability of the golden-winged eagle. There was a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. Although Chi-Yu was enduring his injuries, he still couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood when he saw Chi-Yu again. What Chi-Yu said was right. If the first 7 techniques of the Xianyuan 8 techniques were compared with the Pangu Axe's 7 moves of splitting the heavens, coupled with the gap between his energy and Chi-Yu's, failure was obvious. Chi-Yu's hair had become a little messy, and even his body, which was floating in the air, was swaying a little. Although he had not been fatally injured. But now, the blood and energy in his body had been greatly shaken, and it would take a while to recover. However, the origin of nature was the origin of nature. The huge natural energy had already transformed his body to be extremely tough. In front of the destructive energy of the Pangu axe, the Xianyuan sword blocked the front, and the aftermath was not enough to seriously injure Chi-Yu. Although he had lost, Chi-Yu was not discouraged at all. After all, who was Chi-Yu? He was an ancient demon god, and he could fight with him for such a long time. It was enough to be proud of. Even if his teacher, Emperor Huang, was here, it would be impossible for him to defeat Chi-Yu, who had obtained the Pangu axe. Run. This idea arose in Chi-Yu's mind. The wings on his back represented the ability of the golden-winged eagle, and there was an even stronger golden-winged eagle in his body. As long as he escaped from here before he was locked by the energy of the Pangu axe, even Chi-Yu would not be able to do anything to him. After all, under such a violent collision of energy just now, Chi-Yu did not believe that Chi-Yu would not be injured at all. Even if he had enough energy, how could the sharp chi of the Xianyuan sword be so easy to resist? The two of them looked at each other in midair. One was constantly accumulating energy to attack again, while the other was ready to escape at any time. After the previous blow, Chi-Yu understood many mysteries from it. Chi-Yu was also relieved. After all, the opponent in front of him was still a little inexperienced, and the so-called 7th technique was obviously problematic. Otherwise, he would not have been seriously injured by his attack. Looking at Chi-Yu, the corners of Chi-Yu's mouth had already revealed a sinister smile. If he destroyed him, then he would not have the Xianyuan sword that he feared the most. For Chi-Yu, this was definitely something worth being excited about. Chi-Yu knew that he could not wait any longer. Otherwise, once Chi-Yu used the Pangu axe again, as long as a magical weapon of this level locked onto him, even the Big Dipper boundary technique would not be able to save him. Thinking of this, he had already begun to call out to Little Ping in his heart. However, to Chi-Yu's surprise, Little Ping did not respond to his call. Although he remained calm on the surface, Chi-Yu was full of horror. This bastard golden-winged eagle, he would not betray him at this time, would he? He didn't know how fast Chi-Yu was, but how slow could a flying demon god be? At his speed, could he leave here alive? All kinds of thoughts constantly surged in Chi-Yu's mind. While strengthening his call to Little Ping, he tried to use the power of nature of the source of nature to heal his injuries and absorb the energy molecules in the air. Chi-Yu raised the Pangu axe again. He seemed to have already seen Chi-Yu bleeding in front of him, and the scene of the Xianyuan sword being shattered. The silver light became stronger again. Although the ultimate use of the Pangu axe consumed a lot of energy, it was nothing compared to the destruction of the opponent in front of him. The golden wings on Chi-Yu's back unfurled, but he discovered that the area covered by Pangu's axe was actually so vast. Using his mental power to probe, the surroundings seemed to have been enveloped by a silver sea. Such a huge energy aura, it was indeed worthy of being the third-ranked ancient magical weapon. Chi-Yu suddenly laughed. He gave up condensing his own energy, and no longer had the idea of escaping. He just floated there, as if he had accepted the fact that he was about to die. However, at this moment, the surroundings of Chi Yu's body suddenly changed, and a black light suddenly shot out from between his eyebrows. The black light instantly enlarged in the air, and in the blink of an eye, it had expanded to a height of more than 10 meters. The huge black shadow seemed to not feel the threat of the Pengu axe, and directly pounced towards Chi Yu. Chi Yu muttered to himself with some pride, "You still appeared in the end. You didn't let little Peng escape with me, didn't you wait for this moment?" Yes, the huge figure was the former ferocious beast king, the bull demon king, who had been sleeping in Chi Yu's body for a long time and had endless magic power. According to Chi Yu's knowledge and understanding, no one in this world could surpass the bull demon king in terms of power. At least, none of the people he knew could do so. Back then, he only managed to confine the bull demon king in his body with 10% effort and 90% luck. Why was he willing to stay and fight with Chi Yu without the slightest consideration of the possibility of a mutation? It was because of the bull demon king. In the depths of Chi Yu's heart, the people he hated the most were Yamu and the Pope, but the bull demon king came second. The reason why Wen Ting and the Snow Girl could arrive in time the last time was because of the bull demon king's trick. The bull demon king was unwilling to help him sincerely, but he couldn't watch him die, so he sent Wen Ting and the Snow Girl over. And he couldn't do anything about it. Wen Ting's death greatly stimulated Chi Yu's heart. During his training not long ago, he had warned the bull demon king that if any of his friends died, and if they were related to the bull demon king, he would immediately commit suicide without hesitation. The bull demon king was very clear about the impact of Wen Ting's death on Chi Yu, so when Chi Yu questioned him, he remained silent. It was as if he hadn't done anything. Now, Chi Yu's life was in danger again. The bull demon king finally made a move for the first time after being accepted as an envoy by Chi Yu. Of course, he still didn't want to help Chi Yu, but the Pengu axe was too attractive for him. Feeling the enormous energy of the Pengu axe, the bull demon king couldn't hold it in any longer. Therefore, even though he knew that Chi Yu could escape with Little Peng's help, he still restrained Little Peng in Chi Yu's body. Little Peng's cultivation was not weak, but compared to this old fellow, it was still too far away. Chi Yu was a little complacent, thinking that Chi Yu was about to be annihilated by his hands. However, the sudden appearance of the black shadow raised his alarm. Chi Yu was behind, so he couldn't feel the huge pressure. However, Chi Yu felt completely different from Chi Yu. Who was the bull demon king? He was the most powerful ferocious beast king in history. Just as he appeared, his incomparably huge ferocious aura had already made Chi Yu fall into extreme panic. He subconsciously held the Pengu axe horizontally in front of his chest, and a huge domineering aura suddenly surged out, confronting the bull demon king. The bull demon king floated quietly in the air, and didn't immediately attack Chi Yu. Looking at the ancient demon god in front of him, the bull demon king smiled. Although he didn't have any weapons in his hands, his huge body, which was 10 meters tall, wasn't something that Nali, who was the same height as him, could compare with. Just the aura emitted from his body was enough to make anyone feel intense fear. The huge energy waves had already made a large area of the surrounding space feel like it was about to collapse. Even Chi Yu felt a little suffocated in front of the bull demon king. After all, Chi Yu was not an ancient giant beast. Although he had cultivated for many years and put in countless efforts, the current him. His strength was about the same as the 3 ferocious king subordinates of the bull demon king. If it wasn't for the Pengu axe in his hands, he would have already collapsed in front of the huge pressure brought by the bull demon king. The bull demon king quietly looked at Chi Yu in front of him, and slowly stretched out his right hand. "Give it to me, and I will spare your little life." Looking at the bull demon king in front of him, the shock in Chi Yu's eyes became stronger and stronger. You are..." The bull demon king coldly snorted, "Since you know who I am, don't tell me you still have something to hesitate about?" Either be destroyed or hand over the Pengu axe in your hand. Chi-Yu looked at the Bull Demon King in shock. Didn't you already go missing? How could you appear here again? Don't forget, if it wasn't for me, how could you have become so powerful? Don't tell me you want to repay kindness with enmity? The Bull Demon King sneered. Repay kindness with enmity? I never knew what that meant. In my mind, only becoming more powerful is the most important thing. Hand over the Pengu axe to me and you can go. Otherwise, you can try. Even if you have a divine weapon, you can't withstand 3 moves from me. Floating in the air, Chi-Yu treated the injuries on his body while feeling the changes in the energy emitted by the Bull Demon King. Too powerful, indeed too powerful. The effect of the spatial collapse made him, who shared the life and death domain with the Bull Demon King, feel suppressed. This was the real Bull Demon King in his complete state. The Bull Demon King now seemed to be different from the Bull Demon King he had fought with in the past. At that time, the Bull Demon King was very impulsive. But now, he actually did not have any emotional fluctuations. Could it be that the deep sleep in his body had raised this terrifying guy's strength to another level? Heavens! He was already so powerful. If this was really the case, then how long could the life and death domain restrain him? Thinking of this, Chi-Yu's heart could not help but tremble twice. No, impossible! Chi-Yu roared. Even in front of the Bull Demon King, his demonic aura was displayed. He forcefully raised the Pengu axe to his chest and stared fiercely at the Bull Demon King in front of him. After all, I once helped you. Bull Demon King, you should know how difficult it was for me to get this Pengu axe. I will never hand it over to you. In that case, I will be finished. The Bull Demon King said disdainfully. But, in that case, you can at least continue to live. Aren't you afraid of death? Why? Have you changed your mind now? My patience is very limited. Hand it over. Looking at the Bull Demon King, Chi-Yu's body slowly floated backward. He suddenly laughed. I'm too stupid, really too stupid. Why should I be afraid of you now? I have the Pengu axe. Although there is a big gap between our strength, with the Pengu axe in my hand, even if you want to destroy me, it will not be so easy. At least, if I can't beat you, can't I run away? The Bull Demon King's expression finally changed. During his conversation with Chi-Yu, he had been condensing a new special ability that he had cultivated. As long as he could successfully activate it, even if Chi-Yu had the Pengu axe, he would not be able to escape. However, Chi-Yu still saw through it. Indeed, the power of a divine weapon was extremely great. Otherwise, Chi-Yu would not have taken the opportunity to accept him as an envoy. The Pengu axe was only slightly inferior to the Xianyuan sword in terms of level, and Chi-Yu, the wielder of it, was much stronger than Chi-Yu. If it was still the Bull Demon King of the past, he had at least an 80% chance of destroying the other party. However, now that he was Chi-Yu's envoy, he was greatly restricted and could not stay far away from Chi-Yu. In particular, now that Chi-Yu was seriously injured, he did not want to implicate himself because of Chi-Yu's death. Therefore, he could not stay far away from Chi-Yu. 2 huge arms suddenly spread out, and with Chi-Yu as the center, the space within a radius of 100 meters suddenly collapsed. The huge energy caused the space within 100 cubic meters to completely distort. During the collapse, it seemed as if Chi-Yu's body was about to be torn to pieces. Chi-Yu's expression changed, but he also fully displayed his tyrannical side. The black scales on his body suddenly exploded, turning into countless black rays of light that scattered in all directions. At the same time, he endured the pain of his body being torn apart and instantly waved the Pengu axe in his hand. A silver ray of light with an incomparably domineering energy was swung towards the Bull Demon King. The sound of glass shattering rang out. The collapsed space that the Bull Demon King had displayed was actually shattered by the bombardment of Chi-Yu's first move of the 7 styles of splitting the heavens, splitting the earth. The tyrannical energy of the Pengu axe, along with its remaining power, still met the Bull Demon King's body. The bull demon king roared angrily, and the huge energy instantly enveloped Chi Yu again. The gravity domain appeared, and Chi Yu's body was like a bomb. Under the influence of the gravity that had suddenly increased by many times, he was directly smashed towards the ground. The bull demon king followed closely behind Chi Yu and pounced down. What greeted him was another silver ray of light. In order not to be affected, Chi Yu flew far away. Watching the battle between the bull demon king and Chi Yu was a great benefit to him. Whether it was Chi Yu or the bull demon king, neither was someone that Chi Yu could deal with. Watching the battle between the two experts was a great inspiration to Chi Yu on the use of his own energy. The bull demon king was indeed powerful. Even though Chi Yu had the Pangu axe, he was still no match for him. If it wasn't for the fact that the bull demon king did not want to be injured, Chi Yu would have been defeated by now. In the face of such a huge crisis, Chi Yu completely displayed the strength that he had cultivated for thousands of years. He no longer used the ultimate attack power of the Pangu axe. The huge axe danced up and down in his hand, forming a ball of silver light that protected his body within it. Just like the Xianyuan sword, any domain could only display a minimal effect in the face of this level of attack divine weapon. However, the bull demon king's attack method was also an eye-opener for Chi Yu. In just a short while, the bull demon king had already displayed nearly 10 types of domain abilities, each of which was completely different. Although he could not break the opponent's Pangu axe, Chi Yu constantly spat out mouthfuls of blood mist as he fought and retreated. The Pangu axe could not stop the bull demon king's powerful momentum. In the end, he still suffered a serious injury. The light in Chi Yu's eyes became stronger and stronger. Watching the battle between the two, he did not realize that his eyesight had recovered under the dual effects of the Xianyuan 8 laws and the stimulation of the energy and the source of nature. Although his eyes were still pale red, he could clearly see everything in front of him. The battle between the bull demon king and Chi Yu became more and more intense. Chi Yu's Pangu axe was constantly brandishing out snowflake-like rays and intensive attack. As he fought, he quickly fled into the distance. Chi Yu found that Chi Yu's body was constantly transforming into an illusion. The bull demon king suddenly roared and swung both his fists at the same time. The huge energy fluctuations made his hands look very powerful. Chi Yu's body could no longer resist in the face of that huge power. Like a watermelon that had been squeezed open, a burst of energy rays burst out. Chi Yu's eyes shone brightly. Chi Yu was killed by the bull demon king? No matter which of these two guys killed the other, Chi Yu would be very excited. After all, they were both representatives of evil. The demon god and the fierce king, either one of them could bring disaster to the world. That was not what Chi Yu wanted to see. However, Chi Yu was soon disappointed. Yes, the bull demon king's arms did kill Chi Yu's body, but that was not Chi Yu's real body. Green blood splattered in all directions. It turned out to be a skeleton-like Na Mei that had been smashed into pieces by the bull demon king. Chapter 233. The bull demon king roared at the sky. The huge energy wave caused the ground below to sink by 3 feet. That was an area of tens of square kilometers. His voice was filled with anger and unwillingness. Turning around, the bull demon king looked at Chi Yu, who was floating there. "Follow me, I have a way to find that guy. Follow me to destroy him. Don't you want Chi Yu to die? You just have to follow me to find him and let me kill him. I can help you to uproot the Jili people. This way, your human friends won't have any enemies anymore." Chi Yu looked at the bull demon king calmly. This was the first time he saw such eagerness in the bull demon king's eyes. He said indifferently, "You should know that I don't belong to this era. In this world, everything has its own destiny. In other words, everything has its own laws of nature. I don't want to break the balance of this era. I help humans because I sympathize with and help my own kind as a human. So, even though the Jili people are destined to be destroyed, I won't be the one who will destroy them. The Bull Demon King looked at Chi Yu and panted heavily. The energy around his body became unstable. So, you don't agree to bring me to Chi Yu? Chi Yu looked at him coldly and said, Why should I agree? If you are willing to do what you did to Chi Yu. If you helped me get rid of those Greeks and birdmen from the Vatican when I was in danger, would I be like this now? Would Wen Ting still die? Bull Demon King, even though you have never admitted it, but other than you, who else can teleport Wen Ting and Snow Girl to my side in an instant? Also, don't forget that you are now under my command. Do you still want me to listen to you? Looking at the cold glint in Chi Yu's eyes and feeling the determined aura from his body, the Bull Demon King's aura softened. Chi Yu, I was wrong last time. I should have helped you. But have you ever thought about my feelings? In the past, I could be said to be the ruler of this era. It was because of your appearance that I lost my position as the ruler. He didn't even have freedom. You made me lose so much, why should I help you? Frankly, seeing you in pain. You are my greatest joy. Let bygones be bygones. Although it's impossible for your two friends to come back to life, your woman isn't really dead, is she? It was my fault that time, but you should understand that I am not the source of nature. At that time, even I did not expect that the woman you have always liked would be so cruel. Even you were harmed. When I reacted, it was already too late. At that time, I was good at killing people, but not so good at saving people. That was the only thing I could think of. For the sake of my own safety, I actually helped you. Why can't you think of the bright side? Chi Yu looked at the Bull Demon King. Although he was unwilling to admit it, it was hard to find fault with the Bull Demon King's words. Indeed, the source of nature had been destroyed, and his breath of life was constantly flowing away. The only thing that could save him was the fusion of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth and the giant beast's relic. From a certain point of view, he seemed to have helped him. The Bull Demon King looked at Chi Yu and said, No matter what, even if you don't think that I did it for your own good. But this time, you must help me. As long as you destroy Chi Yu, I can promise to do 3 things for you. How about it? Do 3 things wholeheartedly. Although I, the Bull Demon King, am the king of beasts, as long as I have said it, I will always keep my word. The Bull Demon King's words did not affect Chi Yu much. His wariness and vigilance towards the Bull Demon King would not decrease, nor would he have a good impression of him. However, the Bull Demon King's words made Chi Yu's heart palpitate. He was willing to do 3 things for him? One had to know how powerful the Bull Demon King was. With his help, even if he were to kill his way to Greece or the headquarters of the Vatican, he would most likely be able to destroy those people. If such a powerhouse were to help him sincerely, the help he would receive would be too great. Thinking of this, Chi Yu's eyes flickered and he said, I also want to kill Chi Yu. Since you have said so, I have no reason not to agree. However, on the basis of your promise to do these 3 things for me, I have a few supplementary requests. If you can agree to them, then we have a deal. Otherwise, you can just obediently stay in my body and be my servant. The Bull Demon King looked deeply at Chi Yu, and could not help but laugh bitterly in his heart. Not so long ago, he was still able to command hundreds of people, but now he had to be restrained by this insignificant human. However, killing Chi Yu and obtaining Pangu's axe was too important to him. Didn't the humans have a saying that it was never too late for a gentleman to take revenge? Chi Yu, you bastard, just you wait. One day, I will let you know how powerful I am. Thinking of this, the Bull Demon King put on a helpless look and said, all right, say it. However, don't go too far. Chi Yu laughed. He did not know why, but when he was negotiating with the Bull Demon King, he felt relaxed. After all, the life and death domain was too restrictive for this super powerhouse. He did not dare to fall out with him. Who was he? He was a ruffian. At most, he would die together with him. The Bull Demon King did not know that he was actually unwilling to die. My request is very simple. If I guessed correctly, The reason why you want to kill Chi Yu is not because of any enmity with him, but because of the Panga's axe in his hand. For a powerful existence like you, if you can get Panga's axe, I'm afraid that even a real god can't do anything to you. However, I can't let you kill Chi Yu immediately. In that case, the balance of this era would be extremely damaged. Since you are now my Earth Messenger, there is no use for you to use Panga's axe. Therefore, this matter is not urgent at the moment. You are the king of ferocious beasts, although I believe in your credibility. However, as the saying goes, one must always be on guard against others. I still have to be careful. Therefore, if you want me to agree to go with you to find Chi Yu, that's fine. Then, you have to do 3 things for me before I can take you to find him. Before completing these 3 things, you can't make this request again. What? You want me to do things for you first? How can there be such an advance payment? The Bull Demon King suppressed the anger in his heart and looked at Chi Yu as if his eyes were about to spit fire. Chi Yu said matter-of-factly, "Why not? Don't forget, from a certain point of view, I am now your master. I should be the one who has the final say. If you are willing to agree, then agree. If not, then forget it. Anyway, as my Earth Messenger, you can't be too far away from me. If I hadn't consumed a large amount of Chi Yu's energy just now, I'm afraid it would not have been so easy for you to defeat him. The tyrannical energy of Panga's axe is not so easy to deal with. Even if you can defeat him, so what? You saw the situation just now. Even if Chi Yu can't beat you, he has Panga's axe, so you can't use your domain to lock him down. In such a situation, you can't catch him and get Panga's axe. However, with my help, it's different. My Xianyuan sword can pose a great threat to him. Moreover, with the help of the Xianyuan sword, I can use my own domain to help you restrain him. At that time, his Panga's axe will have no advantage, and he won't have a chance to escape. If you go all out, you will definitely be able to win. Why not?" The Bull Demon King looked at Chi Yu. An ominous glint flashed in his eyes. Chi Yu was right. Although he was very strong, it was very difficult to catch Chi Yu. As Chi Yu said, he was still his Earth Messenger, and Chi Yu couldn't run away in this era. There would still be opportunities in the future. He seemed to be too impatient. Yes, he must promise him. He must not let him see any flaws. Otherwise, the method to lift the life and death domain that he had painstakingly thought of would never be realized. Thinking of this, the Bull Demon King's expression became much more relaxed. He sighed and said, "Forget it, I'm also your Earth Messenger. These days, cultivating in your body is indeed much better than cultivating in the outside world. Consider it my reward for you. I promise to help you do 3 things first. What do you want to do? Do you want to kill all those guys who plotted against you in your era? Including those birdmen. This is easy. I can't do anything else, but killing is my favorite." Chi Yu said indifferently, "Only I can decide what you do. You don't have to worry. Before I make a request, everything you do is invalid. Yes, I really want to kill those people. However, hatred is mine. As a man, I must rely on my own strength to take revenge. You don't have to worry about their affairs. Put these 3 things aside for the time being. When I need you, I will naturally summon you. Alright, you can go back now." Chi Yu also made this decision after weighing the pros and cons. Yes, if he let the Bull Demon King avenge him, or help him, then it would definitely be very successful. However, if that was the case, everything seemed to become meaningless. Just like the hatred left by Yamu and the Pope, if he couldn't do it himself, he would definitely regret it for life. What's impossible with his own strength to take revenge? As long as his strength increased to a sufficient level, he would definitely succeed. Why should he borrow the Bull Demon King's hand? With the Bull Demon King's promise of these 3 things, it would be equivalent to him having 3 more lives. Compared to letting the Bull Demon King help him take revenge, it was much better. Moreover, the reason why Chi Yu proposed to let the Bull Demon King help him first, and then help him find Chi Yu and seize Panga's axe, was naturally for a purpose. Chi-Yu obtaining Panga's axe was a great threat to Chi-Yu, as well as to the divine beasts of this era, but compared to the Bull Demon King, it was still a far cry. As long as humans were smart enough, when those little Kirin grew up, even with Panga's axe, Chi-Yu might not be able to cause much harm. His appearance was obviously arranged by the heavens. Since that was the case, why did he have to destroy the Qingheng of this era? From a psychological point of view, Chi-Yu had never thought of helping the Bull Demon King obtain Panga's axe. He knew that although the life and death domain was enough to threaten the Bull Demon King, however, the Bull Demon King was really too powerful. He stayed in his body. Although he was a messenger, he was like a cancer that could erupt at any time. Therefore, he had to solve this problem sooner or later. If he obtained Panga's axe, he was afraid that he would never be able to defeat him. 3 tasks, huh? At most, I will let you do 2 tasks. You don't have to do the last one. Won't you still be unable to let me bring you to find Chi-Yu? Chi-Yu thought evilly. The Bull Demon King and Chi-Yu each had their own ulterior motives, and neither knew what the other was scheming. The Bull Demon King did not talk much with Chi-Yu, and directly returned to his body to continue his own cultivation. At this time, Chi-Yu also contacted Little Peng. However, recently, he had been puzzled. Ever since he communicated with Liao Ji, he had been in a deep sleep. Although Chi-Yu had tried to wake him up several times, he had never succeeded. Riding on Little Peng's back, Chi-Yu quickly returned to the headquarters of the Earth Race. On the way back, he coincidentally met Yi-Ruo, Azure Dragon, White Tiger, and Ryue. Although Ryue had used up a lot of energy after using the Divine Dragon transformation, she was the strongest among the Zodiac Guardian God Warriors. She was also worried about the battle between Chi-Yu and Chi-Yu, so she brought Yi-Ruo and the other 2 to help Chi-Yu. Seeing that Chi-Yu was safe, Yi-Ruo and the rest were overjoyed. The 5 of them returned to the headquarters of the Earth Race. On the way, Chi-Yu described in detail the battle between him and Chi-Yu. He did not mention the Bull Demon King. Chi-Yu's resurrection made Yi-Ruo and the rest nervous. Although Chi-Yu and the rest had achieved a great victory and did not lose a single person, they had at least caused the Jili people to lose a few thousand of their fighting strength. They had also forced Chi-Yu to leave temporarily, giving the humans more time to prepare. However, Chi-Yu was still an ancient demon god. He had also obtained the Pangu Axe. To the humans, this was already a huge threat. After returning to the Earth Race, Chi-Yu first checked on the condition of the members of the Zodiac Army. Everyone was doing well, and most of them were in a state of excitement. Regardless of whether it was the Zodiac Guardian God Warriors or the youths from the 4 big clans, they had always been fearless. In their own era, killing was against the law. In this battle with the Jili people, they were still a little inexperienced at the beginning. However, as the battle went on, the members of the Zodiac army became more in sync with each other. After the baptism of battle, their temperament was obviously changing. After a month of training, they knew that no matter when, as long as they had free time, they had to let their bodies recover to their best condition in order to deal with any changes that might occur. As a result, once they returned, they entered into a state of cultivation. Only the Zodiac Guardian God Warriors waited for Chi-Yu's return. The source of nature was indeed a super ability that could steal the fortune of heaven and earth. Although Chi-Yu had expended a lot of energy and the meridians in his body had been shaken, he only took a day to recover. Although he was feeling relaxed now, he was also a little worried. He was worried that the Jili people would not dare to stay in the vicinity and confront the humans after suffering such a huge blow. This was especially so after Chi-Yu was threatened by the Bull Demon King. If the Jili people left, what would the Zodiac army rely on to train? It was obviously impossible to rely on the beast. Although they had the golden-winged eagle. In this era, the beasts still had the upper hand when compared to the divine beast. If they really wanted to deal with the Zodiac army, they would definitely suffer great losses. Hence, they were not suitable. Now, they could only wait and see what the Jili people were doing. Chi-yu, are you still cultivating? Irua's voice came from outside the door. Chi-yu hurriedly stood up and opened the door. Mother, I am fine now. Irua smiled as she walked in. Let me tell you a piece of good news. Chi-yu's heart stirred as he asked, have the Jili people retreated? Irua nodded and said, yes and no. Although the troops of the Jili tribe had temporarily retreated, they did not retreat too far. Today, Xian Wu and I personally checked the situation at the place where they were originally stationed. The collision of divine weapons was really terrifying. The entire narrow valley had been destroyed. After that, we carefully searched for traces of the Jili people's army. Now, they are stationed at a plain about 50 kilometers away from the narrow valley. I am not sure if they were frightened by the destruction of the narrow valley during your battle. Based on our observations, the Jili people's fighting strength should be around 45,000. However, they were actually reduced by 10% by the Jili people. Now, they are in a state of recuperation and will not attack us for the time being. Of course, this is good news. Actually, the number of people of the Jili tribe who were truly injured by the Zodiac army was no more than 3,000. Chi-yu himself had attacked twice. Chi used 2 attacks, including the destruction of the narrow valley, caused the Jili people to suffer such heavy losses. After hearing Irua's words, Chi-yu could not help but feel excited. As long as the Jili people had not completely retreated, everything was fine. This way, the Zodiac army could continue to train under the threat of the Jili people. Chi-yu was severely injured. He would definitely be worried that the Bull Demon King would chase after him. Furthermore, he needed to recuperate. He would not be able to help his subordinate. The fate of the Jili people's army was not as important as his own life. As long as Chi-yu was not around, everything would be much simpler. At the thought of this, Chi-yu already had his own plans. He turned to Irua and said, Mother, don't you think that this is a good opportunity? Irua paused and asked, what opportunity? Chi-yu smiled and said, all along, humans have been suppressed by the Jili people. This time, isn't it time for us to make the first move? Irua was shocked. Because of the strength of the Jili people, she had never thought of such a problem. After hearing Chi-yu's suggestion, she could not help but feel excited. That's right. Yesterday, Chi-yu's Zodiac army had achieved such great result. This was enough to prove that the Jili people were not invincible. With Chi-yu and his friends here as the main force of the humans, everything became possible. Seeing that Irua was a little hesitant, Chi-yu continued, I am sure that Chi-yu will not appear for at least a month. As long as he is not around, I believe that the Zodiac army will be able to help the 4 human races to whittle down the strength of the Jili people. Although the Jili people are strong, their numbers are limited. If I am not wrong, they will be attacking the humans in full force. At least half of their combat power will be used. To nurture a warrior, it takes a lot of time. As long as we can whittle down our opponents before Chi-yu appears, the humans will be able to regain their dominant position. One day, the Jili people will be completely destroyed. Making the first move is the best way. Otherwise, if we continue to hide like this, the humans will only be able to stand up after the godly beasts destroy the ferocious beast. However, I am not sure if the humans will be able to hold on until then. Irua nodded and said, all right, I will listen to you. It is time to test the power of the weapons you brought. I don't know why, but I can feel a lot of energy coming from you. In terms of strength, although you have improved very quickly, there is still a gap between your energy and mine. Even if you use the Xianyuan sword, you can only barely defeat me or fight me to a draw. However, I do not have the determination to fight like you. Perhaps it is because I have lived in this world for too long. As long as you are around, I will be much more confident. Chi-yu looked at Irua and his eyes became much gentler. He was in a really good mood today. Not only did he receive news that the Jili people had not really retreated, but he also realized that he had finally regained his vision. It could be said that this was a double blessing. Now, he already had a lot of plans and his mind was much clearer than before he came to the ancient beast era. "Mother, I think I will not participate in this battle," Chiyu said. Irua was stunned and said, "Why? Could it be that you—" Chiyu hurriedly pulled Irua's hand and said, "Mother, don't think too much. There is a reason why I will not participate in this battle. This is because there are still some things waiting for me to handle in our era. Therefore, I have to make a trip back. However, don't worry, I will only bring one person back. The Zodiac army. Including the 12 Zodiac guardian god warriors. With them around, it is enough. This time, I might be away for a period of time. However, don't worry, I will rush back as soon as possible." Irua looked at Chiyu and frowned. She said, "Child, I really can't see through you anymore. What exactly is going on in that little head of yours? Don't you think that with your participation and the call of the Xianyuan sword, we will be able to destroy our enemies better?" Chiyu sighed and said, "Mother, perhaps it is heaven's arrangement for me to obtain the Xianyuan sword. However, have you thought about it? After all, I'm not a person of this era. If I get too involved in this era, I'll be in trouble. If I participate too much in this era, the balance of the entire world will be affected, and even our era will be affected. That is not what I want to see. Therefore, I can only play a supporting role in the human race's victory. Do you understand? This time I have to go back." Looking at Chiyu's determination, Irua didn't say anything. After all, with the Zodiac army around, the combat power of the 100-odd people had already exceeded the number of heroes that each race had. If she knew that these members of the Zodiac army all had the golden-winged eagle as their companion, what would she think? Of course, Chiyu wouldn't tell her. As much as possible, it would not affect the balance of this era and still be able to train the soldiers. This was what Chiyu wanted to see the most. After Irua left, Chiyu used his spiritual energy to call all 12 Zodiac guardian god warriors, Shangbing, the Plant Soul, Snow Girl, and Jida into his room. Although the room that Irua had arranged for him was not small, it was still a little crowded with 16 more people. Seeing that everyone was in high spirits, Chiyu couldn't help but feel a little surprised. He smiled and said, "You all seem to be very excited." Guan Ping smiled and said, "Yesterday's battle was really enjoyable. Even I want to go to the battlefield again today. Chiyu, we have finally made it through. The previous training was really painful for us. However, now we truly understand that the pain was definitely worth it. You did not hold back and used the natural energy to modify our bodies, causing our abilities to increase tremendously. After yesterday's battle, we seem to have gained a sense of mastery over our strength after the increase. Everyone is more or less the same. Everyone can clearly feel that their abilities have increased tremendously. Furthermore, that's not all. After being improved by the energy from your source of nature, our body's recovery speed is getting faster and faster. Yesterday's battle was very intense at the end, and everyone was more or less injured. However, after waking up from cultivation this morning, all the energy in our bodies has recovered. Even the small wounds on our bodies have disappeared. This natural energy is really amazing." Even the usually calm Guan Ping said this. Everyone's excitement was obvious. Even Mo Dan's gaze towards Chiyu was now filled with more respect than before. Chiyu smiled and said, "As long as everyone feels that this trip to the ancient giant beast era was not a waste, I am satisfied. There will definitely be more battles. Just now, Mom told me that the Jili people did not completely retreat. Instead, they camped further away. Under my suggestion, the human army here will probably take the initiative to attack. All of you will also continue to participate in the battle against the Jili people. There will be more battles. I think all of you should understand why I want all of you to participate in such a battle. The main goal is to allow all of you to increase your abilities under the pressure of the battle. Because our Zodiac Guardian God Warriors are already very strong, it will not be very effective to increase our abilities in battle. However, the baptism of battle will allow all of you to increase your combat skills and aura. Our 12 Zodiac teams will definitely benefit greatly from this baptism of battle. All of you must remember that the reason we are here to participate in battle is not to destroy the Jili people. That is not our mission. Therefore, in the following battles, as the captains of each team, your responsibilities will become even greater. This is because all of you must protect your own team members. These youths from the 4 great clans had already undergone great changes during this training. After all, our Zodiac Guardian God Warriors are weak. Therefore, we must strengthen ourselves. If we want these youths to truly become one of us, we must first pay a price. I hope that all of you can treat your own team members as your family. Only by treating others with sincerity will you be able to obtain their sincerity. Many of you are older than me, so I don't need to explain this logic. Furthermore, during battles, don't aim to kill as many enemies as possible. Instead, aim for 0 casualties. Injuries are nothing, but there must not be any serious injuries. Deaths must not occur. It wasn't easy for these youths to become as strong as they are now. Every single one of them is our treasure. In the future, when we return to our era, we will need to rely on their strength to make us even stronger. Ryua looked at Chi-Yu and said, Chi-Yu, with you at the helm, we don't need to pay too much attention. Chi-Yu smiled and said, It's precisely because I'm leaving soon that I want all of you to pay more attention. Ryua was shocked and said, What? You're leaving? We have already experienced the dangers of this era. How can we be at ease if you leave alone? Where do you want to go? Chi-Yu laughed and said, I'm going to a place that will definitely make you feel at ease. I have to make a trip back to our era. Moreover, it will be some time before I return. As he spoke, Chi-Yu's gaze turned towards Changjian and said, Back then, I promised you that I would bring Miss Xiao Lu to this era for a tour. You should have seen how beautiful the environment was during the era of the ancient beast. I think this place should be very suitable for her, who pursues the feeling of nature. Now that our side has stabilized, and the initial training has also ended, it's time to bring her over. In the past few days, I have indeed been somewhat blinded by hatred. Perhaps it's because I have been baptized by more natural energy in this era, my heart has also become much calmer. Of course, hatred will always exist before it is resolved. However, I promise everyone that I will definitely not immerse myself in hatred. The Kirin group is almost done. This time, when I return, I will also bring back the fruits that I obtained from here. I will start preparing for the official sale. This unique and original fruit will definitely be a success in our era. If we want to defeat our enemies, we must not only be good in battle, but also in other aspects. I will definitely do well in the Kirin group. Ryua, I still owe you 200 million. If I don't get the Kirin group up and running, even if you don't care, your brother will still come for you. Chapter 234. Chi-Yu sternly said, After I leave, you guys will discuss and decide what to do here. Brother Guan Ping is the most educated, and Ryua is more experienced in all aspects, so it's mainly up to you guys. If there's any disagreement, the final decision will be made by the two of you. We, the Zodiac Guardian Warriors, are one, so no matter what, you must put your own safety first. If there's no other choice, even if you have to abandon the 12 Zodiac teams, you must protect yourselves. The black and white twin dragons will stay behind to help you guys, but I still say, unless it's a matter of life and death, don't use those golden-winged eagles. Although we're here to help, I don't want Mom and the others to know how strong we really are. I'll be leaving with Snow Girl in a while, so take care everyone. As he said that, Chi-Yu's eyes swept across everyone, especially on Ryua, Ming Ming, and Shang Bing, using his gaze to comfort them. The first to react was Ming Ming. She cried out in surprise and rushed to Chi-Yu's side, holding Chi-Yu's face and looking deeply into his eyes. She said excitedly, Chi-yu, your eyes have spirit again, can you see again? Chi-yu smiled and said, this is a piece of good news for everyone before I leave. Yes, after the battle with Chi-yu yesterday, maybe it's because of the energy fluctuations from the divine tool, I actually regained my vision. I'm really very lucky. Everyone cheered at almost the same time. Ryue and Shangbing also rushed up, surrounding Chi-yu tightly in the center, looking at them making out. But in front of so many people, it was not good to express her feelings. It was just that it was not good to express her feelings in front of so many people. As for Chi-yu, she was full of gratitude. She was filled with gratitude, but when she saw him surrounded by the three women, she felt a little awkward. Ming Ming and Ryue quietly suggested to go back with Chi-yu, but Chi-yu rejected them. Every team of the 12 Zodiac teams needed someone to lead them, and all the Zodiac Guardian warriors were here, so that the entire Zodiac army could exert its full strength. Of course, Shangbing also made the same request. Of course, Chi-yu could not take her away, otherwise, how could he explain it to Ryue and Ming Ming? After a round of comforting, after everyone's earnest reminder, Chi-yu and the Snow Lady quietly left the camp of the 4 human races and headed into the distance. Because it was only the 2 of them this time. Moreover, Chi-yu and Snow Girl's strength had improved a lot during the training. Coupled with the experience of using the Kunlun mirrors twice before, they did not consume too much energy. With the help of the Kunlun mirrors, they broke through the space and traveled through time and space. Light flashed. Chi-yu and Snow Girl had already appeared in the Dragon Field courtyard out of thin air. At this time, it was night time in the capital, because the control of energy was much more ingenious. This time, it did not cause as much energy fluctuation as the last time. Taking a breath of the air of his own era, Chi-yu could not help but frown. Compared to the air of the ancient beasts, the air of the modern era, which had experienced countless industrial advances, was really terrible. Suddenly, there was a weight on his back, and Snow Girl's excited voice sounded. Great, I'm so happy today. At least before Dad goes back, you will belong to me completely. A gentle smile appeared on Chi-yu's face. He hooked his hands around Snow Girl's thighs that were wrapped around his waist. You little girl, why have you become so naughty? Snow Girl rested her head on Chi-yu's shoulder, gently bit his ear, and giggled. Why can't I? I'm happy. Chi-yu helplessly carried Snow Girl into the Dragon Field courtyard. Perhaps because he heard the noise outside, he just happened to meet Uncle Zhou walking out of the villa. Looking at Chi-yu and Snow Girl, Uncle Zhou could not help but be surprised. Chi-yu, you're back. Where's Miss? Where are the others? Chi-yu said, we came back for a few days to deal with some things, and then we still have to leave. Uncle Zhou, did anything happen at home while we were away? Uncle Zhou smiled bitterly. How could nothing happen? That day, although Miss arranged for us to stay in the villa, we don't know what happened. But not long after you left, people from the National Security Agency came to our place to check. They searched for a full 3 days and used all kinds of instruments to probe for half a day. I don't know what the hell is going on. In the end, nothing was found, so it was left unsettled. A pensive look appeared in Chi-yu's eyes. Indeed, it was no wonder that the country would send people to investigate. When the space-time tunnel opened that day, even the weather had changed. It looked like he had to keep a low profile in the future. As his strength increased, he would not need to travel through time like before. Uncle Zhou led Chi-yu into the villa. As they walked, he seemed to suddenly remember something. Oh, that's right. A few days ago, young master came to look for the young miss. Seeing that the young miss was not around, he went to look for you. It seemed that there was something urgent. Chi-yu, why don't you contact him? Chi-yu was a little surprised. Zhang Jiuxiao is looking for me? What can he do? Is he here to force me to pay off my debt? Okay, I'll give him a call later. Although it was already night, Chi-yu still had no intention of resting. After returning to the room with Snow Girl, he made a simple plan first. This time, he and Snow Girl came back with a lot of things to deal with. First of all, the fruits brought back had to be sent to the cold storage to keep them fresh. Then, the real advertising campaign of Kirin Group would begin. After all, the preservation period of the fruits was limited. They had to be put on the market in a short time. Otherwise, even if there was a cold storage, it would not be able to be stored for more than a month. This was the most important thing that Chi Yu came back this time. When Kirin Group was on the right track, he could take Snow Girl and Xiao Lu back to the ancient behemoth era. In Chi Yu's plan, this time he would be back in about 2 months. After all, a large number of fruits needed time to be put on the market. Snow Girl understood the importance of the matter. She brought a large number of plans from her room to Chi Yu's room. "Dad, take a look." Snow Girl put the plans in front of Chi Yu. Looking at the thick stack of documents, Chi Yu couldn't help but smile bitterly. "Your dad, I am semi-illiterate. Aren't you making me uncomfortable by letting me see these? You have always been in charge of the group's matters. Just focus on the main point. Starting tomorrow, we are going to start the operation." Snow Girl giggled. She walked to Chi Yu and sat down. She said, "How should I say this? Now, the preliminary preparations are done. The filming of the commercials is also completed. Dad, you didn't see it. Sister Xiao Lu's commercial is very beautiful. You will definitely be surprised later. With Sister Xiao Lu's commercial, we just need to add some gimmick. We will definitely be able to make Kirin Group a hit. Now that the fruits are in place, and we brought back so many this time, we can definitely start selling them. This is what I think. First of all, before we start to put on the market, we have to advertise at all costs. It is important that the products are good. But publicity is also very important. If there is no good publicity, it will be useless. How about this? Tomorrow, I will ask my colleagues in the Public Relations Department to announce to the public that we will be holding a press conference on the launch of Kirin Group's Sapphire series of fruit. At the same time, make reservations for advertisements on major TV stations. On the day of the press conference, we will start distributing the goods. We will start selling them officially. What do you think? Chi Yu smiled and said, "You have learned a lot from Ryue in this aspect. You don't need to ask me. I owe Ryue 200 million. If I fail, I will have to sell myself." The Snow Lady was full of confidence. "No, we're very confident. Dad, I have another idea that I wanted to tell you a long time ago. But after what happened in London last time, I put it aside. Now the time is ripe. If I can realize this idea of mine, I am afraid our Kirin Group will not be able to not become famous." Chi Yu looked at Snow Girl with some surprise and said, "What idea? Tell me. Since I let you be the general manager, Dad naturally trusts you." Snow Girl said, "It's like this. Dad, do you still remember the Yen Huang Soul? Since you have such a close relationship with the Yen Huang Soul, then, can you give some of our fruits to others through the Yen Huang Soul?" After listening to Snow Girl's words, Chi Yu's eyes suddenly lit up. He was a smart person and immediately understood what Snow Girl meant. His eyes shone brightly. "You mean to let us give some fruits to the country's leaders before we start selling them officially? And then fight for the support of the country?" Snow Girl smiled and nodded. She said, "Yes. The fruits we got from the ancient behemoth period are absolutely original and have great benefits for the human body. Gold will always shine. If we can get the support of the country, then we don't need to worry about our sales channels at all. With the policy from above, we can also avoid a lot of unnecessary trouble." "Good. This idea is too important." Chi Yu was a little excited as he hugged Snow Girl and kissed her pretty face. Although he was not very good at sales, he also knew how important the national policy was to an industry. If they could get the approval of the country's top officials, then everything would become much simpler. Snow Girl's pretty face was slightly red as she looked at Chi Yu and said, "Then let's go find the people from the Yen Huang Soul tomorrow. I hope they can be of help." Chi Yu said confidently, No, there is no need to find them. I have a more suitable candidate. With his help, our fruits from Kirin Group can definitely be sent to the country smoothly for the top officials to eat. How about this? Tomorrow we will split into 2 groups. You handle the press conference and contact Xiao Lu. I will be responsible for recommending our precious fruits to the top officials. Oh, right, give me an original and a copy of the results that we sent to the agency for inspection. That is a powerful weapon for talking. With the plan set, Chiyu suddenly felt a lot more relaxed. He seemed to have seen the bright future of Kirin Group. His eyes flashed with a faint light. While he was thinking, Snow Girl's slightly cold but elastic body had already squeezed into his arms. During these days of training, Snow Girl had been suppressing her feelings. Now that she finally had a chance, she naturally would not let it go. Anyway, even her first time was initiated by her. What else could she care about? Like a water snake, she wrapped around Chi-Yu's body. Her cold body had become incomparably hot. Before Chi-Yu could react, he had already been pushed down by his precious daughter. Since he had already had sex with Snow Girl and had gotten Ryue's support, Chi-Yu had no more worries in his heart. However, when Snow Girl's clothes were constantly being taken off by Chi-Yu, both of them found a problem. The shining bra and the small underwear underneath could not be taken off. The faint green light looked so dazzling, but at this moment, why would they care about this beautiful light? Chi-Yu stared dumbfoundedly, suddenly recalling the Mirror Immortal's words. Snow Girl was already immersed in Chi-Yu's big hot hands. Suddenly, she found that Chi-Yu's movements stopped. Her starry eyes slightly opened, and she said with some rebuke, "Chi-Yu, what's wrong?" Chi-Yu pointed to her full chest with a wry smile. "It seems that there is trouble." The Snow Lady was taken aback, and only then did she realize what the problem was. She let out a soft cry and hurriedly closed her eyes. She pointed her right hand at the center of her chest, and a layer of faint green light surrounded her body. Her brows furrowed slightly, as if she had encountered some kind of trouble. After a while, Snow Girl opened her eyes. Her eyes were full of the light of loss. Her eyes were red and she said, "Dad, she doesn't let us be intimate." Who? The Mirror Fairy? What did it mean to be dissatisfied? Chi-Yu's current state was a perfect example. His desire had been completely ignited, but he was told that he could not continue. This feeling was really unbearable. However, he really could not offend the Mirror Fairy now. If the Mirror Fairy made trouble, then what about the companions left in the ancient beast period? Mirror Fairy, come out. Chi-Yu looked at the green on Snow Girl's chest with a little anger. Snow Girl said timidly, she said, "She doesn't want to talk to you." It turned out that when Snow Girl took the initiative to give herself to Chi-Yu, the Mirror Fairy had just completed the process of time and space travel. She had consumed a lot of energy and did not have the power to stop them. When the two of them were intimate, she suffered a lot. Feeling the fluctuations of desire from Snow Girl's soul and body, the Mirror Fairy was extremely angry at that time. But after all, she had already recognized Snow Girl as her master, and it was Snow Girl who took the initiative. She knew that she could not do anything to Chi-Yu. Therefore, she had been enduring. At this time, she finally found a good opportunity to take revenge. How could she give it up? Although it was still time travel. But this time, because she only needed to transport Chi-Yu and Snow Girl, she had a more condensed energy support, so the energy she consumed was much less than the last time. Kunlun Mirrors knew that her strength was not a match for the Xianyuan sword, so she could not compete with Chi-Yu. But she had her own way of revenge. Don't you want to be intimate? I will protect the most important part of Snow Girl and see how you are going to be intimate. Snow Girl looked at Chi-Yu apologetically. Dad, what should I do? I can't convince her. Chi-Yu's expression changed. It wasn't that he hadn't thought of using the Xianyuan sword to break through the immortal in the mirror's three-dot undergarment, but he was afraid of harming the Snow Lady. Furthermore, he couldn't afford to fall out with the immortal in the mirror. He cursed in his heart, "Mirror fairy, this old woman is obviously jealous. But, if she is like this, what can I do?" With a flash of light in his eyes, Chi-Yu already had a plan in mind. This green underwear was obviously made by the Mirror Fairy with the help of the Kunlun mirrors. It was definitely not an illusion. Her clothes recognized Snow Girl as its master, so it was impossible to hurt her. And as the Mirror Fairy of Kunlun mirrors, she and the Kunlun mirrors were one. "Didn't you not allow me to be intimate with Snow Girl? That's good. I want to see how you, the Mirror Fairy, can withstand my desire." He reached out to pull the disappointed Snow Girl and let her sit on his lap. He gently combed her long hair behind her ear, and then, Chi-Yu's lips had already kissed her gently. From shallow to deep, the flame of desire burned again. How could Snow Girl be Chi-Yu's opponent? Under the influence of Chi-Yu's own breath, her body heated up again. Chi-Yu's two big hands kept moving up and down her body, and the breath full of desire filled the air between the two. Every time he touched, Chi-Yu deliberately passed through the underwear. The hot big hands, with a little gentle electricity, not only stimulated Snow Girl, but also stimulated the Mirror Fairy with the breath of life. You bastard! Even Chi-Yu did not expect that his choice would be so correct. He and the Snow Girl had only been intimate for less than 10 minutes. A touch of green light had floated out, and the Mirror Fairy showed her original appearance. Her beautiful face had become red. Looking at the man and woman entangled with each other, her pretty face seemed to be dripping blood. Her breathing had obviously become very rapid, and the parts of her body that were exposed to the air were clearly visible. The exposed parts of her body revealed a layer of rose-red color. At this time, Chi-Yu's hand just happened to cross the middle of Snow Girl's elastic thighs, gently rubbing against the green underwear. The Mirror Fairy's whole body trembled, and she could not help but let out a moan. Her big watery eyes stared at Chi-Yu. She could not bear it anymore. Her hands quickly and tremblingly changed the shape of her hands in front of her body. Green light gushed out from Snow Girl's delicate body, and in the blink of an eye, it condensed into the terrain of Kunlun mirrors in the air. The Mirror Fairy snorted angrily. She turned into a shadow and merged into the Kunlun mirrors. The mirror turned and fell on the table in the direction of the wall. Obviously, she did not want to see this pair of desire again. Chi-Yu and Snow Girl looked at each other and smiled. After all, the Mirror Fairy was also alive. Although her identity was very strange, it could be seen that she could also be provoked by desire. The green underwear disappeared. There was no longer anything that could be a barrier between them. The stamen, which had long been moist, gently opened, bringing with it sparkling and translucent nectar, waiting for the scorching high spirits. Perhaps it was because of the previous barrier. This time, Chi-Yu and Snow Girl were particularly aroused. When they were making love, they had already forgotten Uncle Zhou's words. Naturally, they also forgot to contact Zhang Qiuxiao. In the morning, Chi-Yu woke up from the physical entanglement with Snow Girl. Feeling the smooth skin of Snow Girl, his heart was filled with love. This girl. Her needs in that aspect seemed to be a little crazier than Ryue. However, it was also because of this. She was barely enough to satisfy him. Although not completely satisfied, the refreshing feeling of waking up in the morning made his whole body comfortable. Quietly getting up from the bed, Chi-Yu was careful not to wake up Snow Girl. After gently covering her with the quilt, he put on his clothes and walked out of the room. What he discussed with Snow Girl last night made Chi-Yu very excited. Kirin Group was his own idea, and it was also the first time in his life that he tried to start a business. Although it was with Ryue's financial resources, it was the only way to achieve a certain degree of success in a short period of time. After all, Chi-Yu's time was limited, and most of his time had to be spent on cultivation. It was enough for him to have a stable career. Walking out of the room, Chi-Yu looked at the calendar. Coincidentally, today was the weekend, and the person he thought of last night should be at home. Picking up the phone in the villa, Chi-Yu dialed a number. "Hello, may I ask if General G is at home?" Chi Yu asked respectfully. That's right, General G was the person Chi Yu thought of. As a senior member of the national military, no one was easier than him to push the fruit of Kirin Group to the top of the country. No matter from which perspective, pushing Kirin Group's fruit from the ancient behemoth period to the top of the country was beneficial to both sides. With the effect of these fruits, it could make the country's leaders healthier, which was extremely important for a country. Chi Yu was full of feelings for his country, so when Snow Girl proposed this idea last night, he immediately felt that it was feasible. Even if it didn't help him in any way, he hoped to do this. It could be considered as a contribution to the country. After reporting his name, there was a weight tone on the other side of the phone. General G was indeed at home. After all, he was getting older. Although he hadn't retired yet, General G's weekly rest time was fixed. Chi Yu, why did you think of calling an old man like me? You haven't come to see me for a long time. General G's hearty voice came from the other side of the phone. He did not know why, but when Chi Yu heard this general's voice, he felt that General G gave him a more amiable feeling. Her Majesty had lessened. Uncle, aren't I going to see you today? Chi Yu quickly replied respectfully. At the same time, he also said that he was going to visit General G. General G was a little surprised. Oh? You're coming with Ming Ming? You brat. After abducting my daughter for so long, Ming Ming is coming home less and less often. This time, even Jida is going with you for some training. Bring them back. Even as a senior member of the country, he was getting older and more dependent on his children. Chi Yu said apologetically, Uncle, I'm sorry. Ming Ming and brother Jida are still in training. I'm afraid they can't come back to see you. It's just me. Is that okay? General G was silent for a moment. As a senior, he could naturally tell that Chi Yu was looking for him for something. All right. Then come over now. I'll wait for you. After hanging up, Chi Yu had a simple breakfast. After telling Uncle Zhou what to do, he left Dragon Field Courtyard alone. He didn't want to be too ostentatious, so he didn't drive Ryue's Lamborghini. Instead, he drove the BMW that Wen Ting left for him and headed towards General G's house. Chi Yu was dressed in black as usual. He wore a black shirt, black pants, and a pair of black casual shoes. His broad shoulders, handsome figure, and head of white hair made him look even more handsome. Although he wasn't very handsome, his temperament was comparable to anyone. After a check, Chi Yu drove into General G's district. When he took the elevator to General G's house, General G's secretary, who was a senior colonel, was already waiting outside. Chi Yu greeted him politely and walked into Ming Ming's house with him. General G was sitting on the sofa in the living room, reading the newspaper. When he saw Chi Yu walk in, he waved at him. He smiled and said, "Sit." It had been almost a year since he last saw this senior. It looked like General G had a few more strands of white hair on his temples. He seemed to have aged a bit. He worked hard for the country. No matter how many times he saw him, Chi Yu would always feel a sense of respect. Uncle, sorry to disturb your rest, Chi Yu said respectfully. General G put the newspaper in his hand on the coffee table and looked at Chi Yu up and down. He smiled and said, "Is it popular for young people to dye their hair white? I've never heard of it." Chi Yu realized that he was different from before. He touched the white hair on his head and smiled bitterly. Maybe. He didn't want Ming Ming's father to worry about him, so he tried to fool him. At the same time, he didn't want to disturb General G's rest, so he went straight to the point. Uncle, I'm here to give you a gift. At the same time, I want you to do me a favor. Ji Zhongming was stunned. He looked at Chi Yu and frowned. Does this count as bribing a national leader? Although his brows were furrowed, there was a smile in his eyes. Although he had only interacted with Chi Yu a few times, he had quite a bit of information on Chi Yu. He was very confident in this young man. Chi Yu smiled and said, "You can say that. But I'm not only bribing you. I'm also bribing all the important leaders in the country. Ji Zhongming looked at him in surprise. You're talking big. Tell me, what's going on? Qiyu glanced at the secretary standing to the side. This senior colonel's secretary naturally understood his intentions and shot a questioning look at General Ji. General Ji waved his hand, and the responsible secretary entered the inner lounge. Qiyu unbuttoned the top 3 buttons on his shirt and revealed the Kirin pearl. Under the guidance of the Thundercloud Force, a brocade box that he had carefully prepared appeared in his hands in a flash. Kirin Group's preparations were complete. The brocade box in Qiyu's hands was specially designed for the sale of Kirin Group's original fruit. It was a VIP gift box. The gift box was square. It was black on the outside and was inlaid with silver. The overall structure was very simple. The side length was about 35 centimeters. The most striking feature of the box was that there was a huge sapphire in the center of both sides of the box. Of course, it couldn't be a natural sapphire. But from the crystal-clear blue light, it could be seen that even if it was man-made, the sapphire was very valuable. Through the sapphire, a Kirin's head could be seen clearly. This head was designed by Qiyu based on the Kirin tattoo on his chest. The black Kirin's head was held high. The black and silver horn looked very straight. With the sapphire rendering, it gave people a great visual impact. The 2 sapphire pieces were the size of a fist. It was very easy for people to notice the Qilin pattern. Qiyu placed the brocade box on the coffee table and pushed it in front of General Ji. General Ji was a national leader. He had seen everything. From this expensive brocade box, he could tell that the item inside was priceless. He said hesitantly, "Endure, Qiyu, you're not really here to give me a gift, are you? If it's a betrothal gift for Ming Ming, then I can consider accepting it. Otherwise, you should know my personality." General Ji's face was a little unhappy. "Qiyu, aren't you going to open it? I think you'll definitely accept it after you see it." General Ji glanced at Qiyu. With his status, he shouldn't even look at Qiyu. But for some reason, the young man in front of him easily made him trust him. Meeting Qiyu again gave him a very different feeling from the last time. Qiyu was not as lively as before, but more steady and weathered. In just a year, this young man seemed to have matured a lot. Sighing softly, General Ji nodded and said, "Open it." Qiyu acknowledged and placed the box flat. Unlocking the intricate lock, he opened the box. Compared to the gorgeous exterior, the interior design of the brocade box wasn't inferior. The interior of the brocade box was completely covered with white velvet. It gave off a luxurious and elegant feeling. On the open side, there was a disc-shaped pattern. This pattern was also designed by Qiyu. It was based on the Kirin mirror. Not only was it very oppressive, but it also looked very noble. The silver part was completely inlaid with pure silver. Chapter 235. Qiyu pressed on the edge of the box, and 2 more layers appeared. The middle layer had 6 dark green fruits, and the bottom layer had 6 light purple fruit. Qiyu smiled faintly. "Uncle, can you accept this gift now?" The fragrance of the fruits filled the entire hall. The refreshing and elegant aroma made General Ji take a deep breath. Under the influence of the aroma, his body felt much more comfortable. He asked curiously, "Qiyu, are these fruits? I don't think I've seen such fruits before. Could it be that this is a newly bred breed?" Qiyu nodded. "Yes, this is the latest original ecological fruit that my company has developed. It's going to be on the market soon, so I specially sent it over for you to try. It's just some fruits, it can't be considered a bribe." General Ji picked up the sapphire-like fruit on the top layer. "Is it really just some fruits? This box of yours doesn't look that simple. When did you start a company? I've never heard Ming Ming mention it." Qiyu chuckled. "That's why I said I have something that I need your help with." General Ji put the fruit back and said, "Just get straight to the point. Are you going to beat around the bush with me?" Qiyu said seriously, "Uncle, I've brought these fruits over for you to try because I have something to ask of you. I would like to ask you to give these fruits produced by our company to the leaders of the country to try. If the country needs it, our company is willing to provide these fruits to the leaders for free. General G's face turned solemn when he heard Chi Yu's words. I'm afraid that's going to be difficult. If it's just a personal gift from me, it'll be easy. But if it's to let the leaders of the country use these fruits as food, it'll be difficult. You should know that the leaders of the country are the mainstay of our Yanhuang Republic. To prevent any unnecessary danger, the food that the leaders eat has to be carefully inspected. Besides, it's not easy to accept that you're giving it away in the name of a company. Chi Yu nodded and said, I have thought about these problems. I know it's hard. However, as a citizen of the Yanhuang Republic, I hope to contribute to the country. One thing I can guarantee is that our Kirin group produces fruit. It was unique in the country and even in the world. The nutrients in it were not something any fruit could compare with. The brocade box I brought is a VIP gift box. 3 of the fruits are the representative products of our group. The topmost layer is the sapphire fruit. It was the best of the sapphire series of fruit. The middle layer was the emerald fruit, which represented the best of the emerald series. The bottom layer was the amethyst fruit, which belonged to the amethyst series. They all had different effects. Uncle, if you trust me, you can taste it with your aunt first, I think. These fruits are enough to let you feel some changes in your body. I sincerely hope that our leaders can be healthier. That's why I came here to propose this to you. I don't have any other thoughts. I don't need any support from the country after receiving the fruit. As long as the leaders are willing, I can do it in private and strictly confidential. As he spoke, Chi Yu took out all the test reports of the 3 series of fruits that Kirin Group had first launched from his Kirin Pearl. The seal on the report was from the National Test Center, which was the most authoritative test organization in the Yanhuang Republic. Ji Zhongming looked at Chi Yu. The light in his eyes had gradually become gentle. It's rare for you to have this kind of intention. All right, then I'll try it for you. Chi Yu smiled and stood up, saying, Uncle, then I won't disturb your rest. In these test reports, I also put a copy of the consumption methods and suitable people of these 3 fruit. You can eat it after you read it. It's also a form of filial piety from me and Ming Ming to you and your aunt. Ji Zhongming nodded and stood up, saying, Take good care of Ming Ming for me. If there's time, go home with her more often. After all, she's my only daughter. Chi Yu, you seem to have done some things in the West a few days ago. Although I don't know what really happened, you have already attracted the attention of the country. When there's time, you have to try your best to put the country's interests first. Do you understand? Chi Yu said sternly, Uncle, I don't dare to say anything else, but I can guarantee you one thing. No matter when, I will always be a descendant of Yanhuang, and the blood of Yanhuang flows in my body. Ji Zhongming sent Chi Yu all the way to the door before stopping. Watching Chi Yu leave in the elevator, his mind was still echoing with Chi Yu's last words, and the light in his eyes became even more gratified. What a good child! I wonder what kind of surprise his fruits will bring me? After closing the door, General Ji returned to the hall and picked up the test report left by Chi Yu. After leaving the military zone where General Ji lived, Chi Yu directly drove to the headquarters of the Kirin Group. When he was in the West previously, the entire group was handled by Snow Girl, Wen Ting, and Ryue. As the chairman of the group, he didn't even show his face. Now that he was finally back and his main purpose was for the group, he had to do something. He couldn't let Snow Girl work too hard on her own. Fortunately, Chi Yu had a strong sense of direction, and he successfully arrived at the office building where Kirin Group was located. With the registered capital of 100 million, it was naturally impossible for Kirin Group to buy an office building. Back then, after Ryue's selection, she chose this second-class office building in the city center and rented the top 3 floors for office use. Chi Yu wasn't too worried about General Ji. After all, he was still very confident in his original fruit. As long as General G ate them, the effects would be good. Then, all the problems would be solved. He didn't believe that the leaders of the country would give up on these good things. Chi-Yu got out of the BMW and walked directly into the lobby of the office building. As soon as he entered the door, he attracted the attention of everyone in the lobby. After all, his long white hair was too unique. It was a sharp contrast with his black clothes. To describe it in popular terms, it was extremely cool. Chi-Yu was already somewhat used to this kind of gaze. He deliberately controlled his spiritual power to release a layer of cold aura that kept people away from him. He calmly walked to the elevator and waited. With a soft sound, the elevator arrived. When the door opened, a person walked out, and happened to meet Chi-Yu face to face. When the two of them faced each other, the person couldn't help but let out a soft sound and looked at Chi-Yu and stopped. Chi-Yu was also stunned for a moment. He knew this person. This was a woman, a very beautiful and elegant woman. When he and Ryue participated in the auction, Ryue once introduced this woman to him. Her name was Yu Guan. She was Ryue's future sister-in-law. Yu Guan wore a blue business suit, and her long hair was tied up on the top of her head. She looked very smart and capable. Oh my God! You dyed your hair white. So cool. Yu Guan's words didn't seem to be said by a 27 or 28-year-old woman. Now she was like a little girl. Chi-Yu said with a wry smile, "Hello, Sister Yu Guan." Yu Guan looked up and down at Chi-Yu. Although this man who was full of vicissitudes of life was not as good as Zhang Qiuxiao, he had a special attraction. She couldn't help but secretly admire him. No wonder Ryue, who had always been arrogant, took a fancy to him. Her heart moved. She suddenly thought of something, patted her forehead and said, "So it's the boss. I almost forgot that this Kirin Group belongs to you." Chi-Yu was the boss of Kirin Group. This matter might be a secret to others, but she was Zhang Qiuxiao's woman. How could she not know? Chi-Yu smiled and said, "What? Did my brother-in-law ask you to supervise whether I can pay back the money?" Yu Guan snorted and said, "Him? He can't command me. I'm a professional manager. Ryue especially asked me to help you manage the group. If it weren't for Ryue, I wouldn't come to your small company." Chi-Yu smiled and said, "So, you are also a member of our Kirin Group? Although the company is still small, it won't take long. I believe that our company will become world-class." As soon as the company was mentioned, the look on Yu Guan's face suddenly became professional. She nodded and said, "If the group's products are really as magical as the test report says, I have every reason to believe you. Mr. President, shall we not block the door? I think this is the first time you have been here. Let's go, I'll take you up." The two got in the elevator. Chi-Yu and Yu Guan chatted briefly. Only then did he know that Yu Guan's position in Kirin Group was Deputy General Manager and Sales Manager. Like Ryue, she was obviously a strong woman. Yu Guan said with some resentment, "Say, where did you take Ryue? Since she and you got together, our family's Zhongxiao has been so busy that he doesn't have time to compensate me. Say, how are you going to compensate me?" Chi-Yu said helplessly, "Big sister, how do you want to compensate me? I can't tell you where Ryue is. If you take her back, what should I do?" Yu Guan chuckled and said, "Looking at you, you still have some momentum. Why do you talk like a child? You don't have the style of a CEO. We're here." The two got out of the elevator. Chi-Yu suddenly felt his eyes light up. As soon as he got out of the elevator, he saw a huge Kirin pattern. A sense of familiarity hit him. The huge ink Kirin pattern became the logo of the company. It gave a strong visual impact. Under the pattern, there was the logo of Kirin Group in Yanhuang language and English. The receptionist was wearing a white professional suit. When she saw Yu Guan, she showed a professional smile and said, "Hello, Deputy General Manager." Yu Guan nodded and walked inside with Chi-Yu. The receptionist's eyes followed Chi-Yu until she couldn't see him anymore. He secretly pondered in his heart. Which celebrity was this? What a cool temperament. The feeling of coldness was too lethal. Under the guidance of Yu Guan, Chi Yu briefly visited his own Kirin group. It had a total of 3 floors. It was basically decorated with standard office buildings. The overall color was mainly black and silver, which fully reflected the feeling of matching his ink Kirin. This was designed by Ryue Won-ting and Snow Girl. Kirin patterns of different sizes could be seen everywhere. The whole interior of the company had a strong sense of integrity. It was easy to leave a deep impression. Yu Guan took Chi Yu for a simple walk and said, "I'm sorry, Mr. CEO. There is no office for you in the company. Who asked you to have never been here before? What are you going to do now?" "Chi Yu, is Snow Girl here?" Yu Guan nodded and said, "Snow Girl is finally here today. A few days ago, when she left, everything was on my shoulders. This time, I can relax a little." Snow Girl was already here? Chi Yu originally did not hold much hope. This lass had exhausted herself from last night's craziness, yet she was still able to crawl out of bed to work today. Of course, it was not because of the company, but because of him. Thinking of the Snow Girl's sweet voice last night, Chi Yu couldn't help but feel warm in his heart. "Sister Yu Guan, you have been in the company. You should be the most familiar with the company. Why don't I come to your place for a while? Tell me about the current operation of the company." Yu Guan nodded and said, "How can this little girl dare to disobey the CEO's order? Come on." Yu Guan took Chi Yu to her office. To Chi Yu's surprise, as the deputy general manager, her office was very small. At least, it was much smaller than Chi Yu imagined. Yu Guan asked Chi Yu to sit in the main seat. She immediately showed the qualities of a professional manager. She didn't take any information at all. She directly told Chi Yu about the current situation of Kirin Group. "The preparation of the group in front of us is complete. We have already contacted some high-end stores. As long as our products are formed, we can immediately put them on the market. The preparations for publicity have also been done. When Snow Girl came today, she told me that the products are almost ready. We plan to hold a press conference in 3 days. The place where the press conference will be held is being contacted. For the time being, it will be booked as a 5-star hotel. We will try our best to invite reporters from major media to attend. The company's financial situation is good. About 30 million of the 100 million on the books has been used on the preparatory work. The remaining funds will be mainly used for sales channels and further publicity. That's the overall situation. The biggest problem now is that the final price of the group's products has not been set. Since you are here today, let's settle this matter. When we hold a press conference in 3 days, we can also directly announce it." Chi Yu nodded and said with satisfaction, "Thanks to you. As for the price, do you have any good suggestions?" Yu Guan pondered and said, "According to the various test reports of our company's products, the effect is far better than any similar products on the market. The benefits to the human body are so great that it can even be described as a treasure. Coupled with the publicity route we prepared in the early stage, and a comprehensive consideration of various factors and costs, I think our company's products should go the high-end route. The price can be set relatively high. After all, our products are unique. As the saying goes, the rarer something is, the greater its value. There are many rich people in Yanhuang, especially in the capital. I think, as long as the publicity is good, coupled with the effects of our product, the sales should be good." Chi Yu nodded and said, "How many products do we have now? I only know that we are going to launch 3 series this time. I don't know how many products there are in total." Yu Guan said, "The Sapphire series has a total of 7 products. The sapphire fruit has the best effect. It is also the most precious. The other 6 are second, each with different effects. They are mainly aimed at the female market. The Jade series and the Amethyst series are suitable for both young and old men and women. There are 6 and 8 types respectively. There are a total of 21 products, divided into 3 main categories. I think we can launch each series with the best fruit as the Fruit King. The price can also be set higher. Chiyu said, we have the same idea. I am also prepared to go the high-end route. Sister Guan, what range do you think we should set the price at? Yu Guan said without hesitation, the 3 series of Fruit Kings, I think we should set the price at around 1,000 yen Wang dollars. As for the remaining types, the price can't be lower than 500. Only this way can we show the nobility of our company's product. And the price is also considered reasonable. There will always be people who will come to buy out of curiosity. As long as our products are really good, we don't have to worry that they won't come back to buy. As long as we can successfully open up the market, then our initial investment will quickly return. With the expansion of sales channels and the strengthening of publicity, the company will be able to get on the right track and gradually develop. Chiyu stood up and said, all right, the price is set. I will go take a look at Snow Girl's side. Oh right. Just change the price you mentioned to yen won coins to US dollars. All right. What did you say? Yu Guan stared dumbfounded at the tall man in front of him. Chiyu, did you say it correctly? $1,000 for a fruit? Heavens! Do you think you're selling gold? Chiyu said proudly, the company's products are originally worth more than gold. Because they are all unique. If we don't set such a high price, how can we reflect the nobility of our company's products? Yu Guan said in shock, you can't be serious. You must understand, this will cause many of our customers to shrink back. Eating a fruit will cost $1,000. Heavens! Who would be able to bear this? Chiyu smiled, saying, there will always be people who will pay the bill. I have already prepared to lose money in the early stages. But, Sister Yu Guan, don't forget, we are selling fruit. Under such a price, as long as we sell one, it will greatly reduce our cost. As long as we sell 1/10 of all the fruits, we can already make a lot of money. Sales can be slow, but the uniqueness of our price and quality cannot be changed. Oh right, the price you mentioned just now seems to be a bit of a gimmick. Why don't we equate the price of the Fruit King with gold? Calculate it according to its own weight. Chiyu, are you crazy? Heavens! You're really crazy. Forget it, it's still $1,000 you said just now. Right now, I'm already somewhat regretting agreeing to help Ryu, you lunatic. Yu Guan's words already had a bit of anger. Chiyu faintly smiled, saying, well, Sister Yu Guan, you must have confidence in our products. Don't forget, you're the Deputy General Manager. I'm going to find Snow Girl. Just now you seem to be going out, you go do your work. While saying that, Chiyu directly walked outside. Wait a minute. Yu Guan suddenly called out to Chiyu, her complexion somewhat unsightly. The price set by Chiyu was after all too outrageous, really difficult for her to accept. However, she was after all just a professional manager. How the final price was decided could only be decided by Chiyu, this nominal CEO. Is there anything else? Chiyu stopped walking, turning back to look at Yu Guan. Yu Guan said, you give Song Xiao a call, he seems to have something important to talk to you about. Chiyu stared blankly, only then did he remember what Uncle Zhou said to him last night. Look at my memory, okay, I'll give big brother-in-law a call later. Thank you, Sister Yu Guan. Looking at Chiyu's back as he left, Yu Guan couldn't help but feel helpless. This guy. If he's not crazy, then he's an idiot. Last time he spent so much money to buy my things and give them to Ryue, that was already abnormal enough. This time, he actually set such a price for his own company's products that could kill people. Heavens! Is he really a madman? Although her mouth said so, in Yu Guan's heart, she felt that the price set by Chiyu seemed to have some reason. When Chiyu walked out of Yu Guan's room, it suddenly occurred to him. He didn't know where the general manager's office was, but of course it was not a problem for him, with his origin of nature ability. It was too easy to find the breath of Snow Girl. With a slight movement of his spiritual force, he had already found the direction of the general manager's office. When Chi-yu was previously shown around by Yu Guan in Kirin Group, it had already attracted a lot of people's attention. He didn't know if Ryua helped Snow Girl and Wen Ting establish the early foundation of the company, did it according to his company's business model. Looking around, Chi-yu thought that he had entered the country of women. Almost more than 90% of the employees were women. Moreover, they were all young women. At this time, among these 90% people, 100% of their eyes were focused on him. Was white hair really so attractive? Chi-yu touched the ends of his hair. He was already thinking about whether to dye his hair back to black when he went back. Before walking to the door of the general manager's office, Chi-yu heard the voice of Snow Girl. Snow Girl's voice returned to the original coldness. She seemed to be issuing some order very calmly. Walking to the door of the office, Chi-yu knocked on the door a few times, and the voice inside suddenly stopped. Snow Girl said, "Come in." Pushing the door and entering, when Chi-yu saw the appearance of the room, he couldn't help but be shocked. Snow Girl's office was only slightly bigger than Yu Guan's. Throughout the office there were all kinds of fruit gift boxes placed everywhere. They were all designed by the company. And in front of her desk there were 3 women standing. They looked about 30 years old, and they were all dressed in professional clothes. Seeing that the person who came in turned out to be Chi-yu, Snow Girl's face suddenly showed a trace of surprise. "Ah, why are you here?" "Well, you can go out first. Do as I said just now. No matter what, 3 days later, our press conference must be held. There must be no less than 100 media present. Especially those important media, whether it is TV, the internet or newspapers, invite as many people as possible to participate." "Yes, General Manager." The 3 women secretly glanced at Chi-yu, and then walked out of Snow Girl's office, thinking in their hearts, "Is this man the boyfriend of the General Manager?" It seemed to be the first time that the General Manager smiled. "So cool feeling. So awesome. My General Manager Snow." Chi-yu smiled playfully, walked to the table and sat down. The Snow Lady walked out from behind the table and unabashedly sat on Chi-yu's lap. She hooked her arms around his neck and said, "What's so impressive about it? Don't make fun of me." Chi-yu lovingly pinched her nose and said, "Silly girl, we just came back last night, and you are so tired. Why don't you take a rest first? We are not in a hurry." Snow Girl smiled and said, "Are you really not in a hurry? I'm afraid not. After all, there are many unknown factors in the ancient beast era. Although I really want to be alone with you like this, Ryua's mother still needs you. We can only rush back as soon as possible after we finish the things here." Snow Girl's understanding made Chi-yu's love for her deepen. He said, "My Snow is really becoming more and more obedient. Let's go to the warehouse later. Store all the fruits and prepare to box them up for sale. I have already discussed the price with Sister Yu Guan. The king fruit of the 3 series is set at $1,000. The others are all $500. Good. Chi-yu, you must attend the press conference 3 days later. After all, this is our company's first press conference, and you are the company's CEO. It is not good not to show up. At that time, Sister Xiaolu will also attend. This time, I must do it with a bang. Let everyone know the name of our Kirin group." Chi-yu, "Okay. But I really don't want to show my face in public." Snow Girl snorted and said, "Then you are willing to let me show my face in public all the time?" "I don't care, you have to attend anyway." Chi-yu surrendered and said, Okay, didn't I already agree? We will go together then. You are going to be busy these few days." The Snow Lady said, "Oh, that's right, how did your business go today? Is there any progress?" "Chi-yu, I have already sent the things. Now we just need to wait for a reply. You may not know, but Ming Ming's father is one of the leaders of our country's military. It is much better to have him come forward than me. I believe that the effect of our products will be able to convince the leaders of the countries. Oh right, let me make a call first. Then we will go to the warehouse. I think we will be done before noon." Let's have lunch together. Snow Girl handed the cordless phone to Chi-Yu and said, "Okay, you have arranged it. It's great that you're here. Otherwise, I might not even be able to eat by myself." Chi-Yu dialed Zhang Qiuxiao's number and waited quietly. The call went through. "Who is this?" Zhang Qiuxiao's calm voice came from the other side of the phone. Chi-Yu smiled and said, "It is me, Chi-Yu." As soon as he heard Chi-Yu's voice, Zhang Qiuxiao suddenly became furious. "Chi-Yu, you still know to come back. Where is my sister? If you don't hand her over, I will die of exhaustion. Your brother-in-law is going to die of exhaustion." After many contacts with Chi-Yu and testing his sister, he had now tacitly accepted Chi-Yu's identity. After all, Chi-Yu was the only man who could move Ryue's heart. Chi-Yu said, "Brother-in-law, I am afraid you will have to work hard for a while. How about this? Our company's products are going to be on the market soon. I will get someone to send some to you later. It can refresh the mind and is good for the body. Especially for the men." Zhang Qiuxiao was silent on the other side. Just when Chi-Yu was going to continue to blame him for stealing Ryue away, he heard Zhang Qiuxiao ask carefully, "Really? Can it improve in that aspect?" Chi-Yu was stunned for a moment, but he quickly understood and laughed in his heart. It seemed that no matter what kind of man he was, he would obviously pay the most attention to that aspect of him. He said with a smirk, "You will know after you eat it and try it with my sister-in-law Yu Guan. If it is really effective, you will have to bear with it. When Ryue comes back, we will apologize to you." Zhang Qiuxiao's voice suddenly became a lot more gentle. He said, "You brat, not only did you steal my sister away, but you also stole my wife to your company. You better be careful. If I find out that my Guan has been wronged, I will ask you to answer for it." Chi-Yu said with a smile, "How can that be? Sister Yu Guan is a mainstay on my side. I can't even wait to flatter her. Oh, by the way, I heard from Uncle Zhou and Sister Yu Guan that you have something to tell me. What is so urgent? Don't tell me you just want to scold me to vent your anger." Chapter 236. Chi-Yu was stunned. He didn't know why, but Zhang Jiuxiao's words made him nervous. "What's the matter? Tell me." Zhang Jiuxiao briefly explained the reason why he was in a hurry to find Chi-Yu. On the other side of the phone, Chi-Yu's face became more and more dignified, and his eyes became more and more strange. When Zhang Jiuxiao finished speaking, he didn't even know how to hang up the phone. He was completely stunned. Snow Girl looked at Chi-Yu, whose mood had suddenly changed dramatically. For a moment, she couldn't help but be at a loss. She hurriedly asked, "Chi-Yu, what's wrong with you? Did something happen?" Snow Girl's voice woke Chi-Yu from his stupor. Looking at the anxious Snow Girl, he took a deep breath and calmed his surging emotions. "Don't worry, it's a good thing. However, I have to go to the Longyu group immediately. I'm afraid I can't accompany you to the warehouse. The fruit storage effect in my Kirin Pearl is no worse than in the cold storage. Wait until I come back. Remember to have a good lunch at noon. I may not be able to make it. I'll leave the company to you." After saying this, Chi-Yu jumped up from the chair like a rocket, put Snow Girl in her seat, and hurried away. Snow Girl's heart was full of doubts. What made Chi-Yu so anxious? Since returning from London, Chi-Yu's temperament had become a lot calmer. Except for the last time when he got hundreds of golden-winged eagles, his mood had rarely fluctuated as violently as today. While Snow Girl was thinking about the reason for Chi-Yu's sudden change of mood, Chi-Yu had already driven his BMW away from the Kirin group. He went to the Longyu group. An hour later, when Chi-Yu walked out of Longyu group with a document in his hand, he became even more sluggish. Like a walking corpse, he returned to his BMW and slammed the door shut. Even when he faced the demon god Chi-Yu back then, Chi-Yu was not afraid at all. However, when he opened the folder in his hand was trembling slightly. There were only 2 pieces of paper in the file, and both of them recorded their resumes. When Chi-Yu carefully took the 2 pieces of paper out of the file, His breathing had become twice as rapid as before. His gaze landed on a piece of paper. Qi Yu's pupils froze as he saw the words written on it. Qi Tianlei, male, 49 years old. Chairman and CEO of Golden Grain Group. Born in the capital, he graduated from Yenhuang People's University at the age of 21. At school, this already showed that he had a very strong economic mind. He started out as a financial investor and made his first pot of gold before graduation. After graduation, he founded Golden Valley at the age of 28. He was awarded the title of one of the top 10 outstanding youths of the Yenhuang Republic. At the age of 30, Golden Valley changed its name to the group. Qi Tianlei, who started from scratch, spent more than 20 years. He developed Golden Grain Group into a multinational consortium that spanned many countries. The consortium's main industry was finance, and it had many fields including aviation, power, real estate, and so on. It achieved great success and was a landmark mission of the Yenhuang Republic's enterprises. According to the latest rankings, Golden Grain Group had entered the top 100 of the world's top 500, with total assets of more than $70 billion. And Qi Tianlei and his wife also became one of the top 10 richest people in the Yenhuang Republic with 31% of the group's shares. Ing Xiaodai, female, 48 years old. Golden Grain Group's general manager and executive director. She was known as a genius girl when she was young. She met Qi Tianlei at Yenhuang People's University. The two developed from business partners to lovers, and finally tied the knot when Ing Xiaodai was 25 years old. With the husband and wife's joint efforts, Golden Grain Group's current scale was achieved. Throughout the entire process of Golden Grain Group's development, Ing Xiaodai played a crucial role. She was Qi Tianlei's most beloved wife, and at the same time, his most capable assistant. Qi Tianlei and Ing Xiaodai only had one daughter, 17 years old. Her name was Qi Yingying. According to the investigation, before Qi Yingying, Qi Tianlei and his wife had a son, but 20 years ago, their son suddenly disappeared less than a month after he was born. Although Qi Tianlei and his wife had tried their best to find him, they still couldn't find him. This was the biggest regret in the couple's life. 20 years ago, Qi Tianlei and his wife, whose business was flourishing, were once depressed because of their son's disappearance, causing the Golden Grain Group to decline from a rapid rise. After the birth of his daughter, Qi Yingying, the situation was reversed, and Golden Grain Group was back on the right track. Reading up to this point, Qi Yu could no longer watch. The rest of the information was about Qi Tianlei and his wife, and Golden Grain Group. Qi Yu's eyes became even more dazed. Photos, why were there no photos? Qi Tianlei, Ing Xiaodai, they are my parents? Qi Yu's body trembled violently, and his tears flowed uncontrollably, dripping onto the white paper in his hand. Yes, the reason why Zhang Xiaoxiao was in such a hurry to find him was to give him this information. Back then, Qi Yu had asked Ryue to help him find his possible parents because of the childhood memories that the Xianyuan sword had brought to him. After returning, Ryue had immediately started working hard. In the beginning, the scope of the search was limited to large domestic companies, but later, the entire scope had expanded to include multinational companies with Chinese leaders. When Ryue followed Qi Yu to the ancient behemoth era for training, she handed the task of finding his parents to her brother. Not long ago, there was finally a result. Although this result was not necessarily completely correct, everything that was shown was exactly the same as what Qi Yu had experienced in the illusion. If that illusion was real, then the two people shown on the information in Qi Yu's hands were most likely his biological parents. As an orphan, Qi Yu had lived in this world for 20 years. What could be more exciting than an orphan finding his parents? Qi Yu's heart was completely trembling, and his body could not control his tears at all. The energy in his body was constantly fluctuating, and now he even had the thought of using the Xianyuan 8 laws to fully release the energy in his body. Qi Tianlei, Ing Xiaodai, you guys. Are you really my parents? Chi Yu's emotions were currently at an extremely unstable level. Apart from excitement and agitation, there was more fear in his heart. The arrival of hope also represented the possibility of disappointment. The greater the hope, the greater the disappointment, the greater the pain. If they were not his parents, then what should he do? The same thought kept echoing in Chi Yu's mind. He was at a loss now, and he did not know what to do. Sitting quietly in the car, Chi Yu did not know how long he had been sitting. It was not until a horn sounded in the garage of the Longyu group that he woke up from his confusion. Looking at the information in his hand again, Chi Yu's heartbeat suddenly accelerated. In any case, this was a huge opportunity for him. If they were really his parents, then he was no longer an orphan. According to the information at the back, the headquarters of the Jingu Group was in the capital. It was also in the city center. Chi Yu had heard of the Jingu Group before. It was a well-known domestic consortium. The total value of $70 billion was more than $20 billion. Did he actually have parents who were rich? Was this possible? What should he do? Should he go and meet his parents? What if they thought he was an impostor? Thinking of this, the light in Chi Yu's eyes dimmed a little. But soon, he struggled out of all kinds of uneasiness. After all, Chi Yu was no longer the little hooligan he used to be. Now, he had already grown up under the cultivation of Kirin's ability. He took a deep breath and calmed his mind. In any case, now that he had gotten the news, he must go and see. Even if there was only 1 in 1,000 chance, he was willing to look for it. Parents. They were his biological parents. Dad, Mom, your son is here. Starting the BMW, he took one last look at the address of the Jingu Group in the information. Chi Yu had deeply imprinted all the contents of the information in his mind. He had no other thoughts now. He just wanted to see his parents as soon as possible. Chi Yu believed that as long as he saw them, he could determine whether they were his biological parent. The illusion brought by Xuanyuan's soul was still vivid in his mind. In the illusion, his mother's shrill voice seemed to be ringing in his ears just now. With strong expectations, Chi Yu drove the car into the traffic and headed for the address of the Jingu Group. The market value of the Longyu Group was also close to 10 billion yuan. It was also a large company in the Yanhuang Republic. However, compared with the Jingu Group, the gap was still very obvious. The Jingu Group was extremely famous in the Yanhuang Republic. Its headquarters was near Xidan in the center of the capital. The group was composed of 3 buildings. The main building in the center was 120 stories high. It was a famous high-rise building in the capital. The financial business of the Jingu Group was also in this building. The other 2 auxiliary buildings were also 80 stories high. Between the 3 buildings, there were a total of 3 bridges connecting them. The overall building looked extremely magnificent. The top of the building was curved. In the center of the main building, there were 4 big words: Jingu Group. When Chi Yu's car was still driving on the main road in the city center, he had already seen these 3 buildings. When he came to Xidan before, he had also seen these magnificent buildings, but he had never deliberately paid attention to them. After all, in his mind, this kind of place must belong to the rich. What did it have to do with him? At this moment, when he saw these 3 buildings again, his feeling had become completely different. Driving the car, Chi Yu fully demonstrated his driving skills, quickly shuttling through the traffic. Although he told himself in his heart that he must face everything that was about to happen calmly, the BMW under his control was like a runaway wild horse. It quickly circled around the overpass and came to the front of the Jingu Group. Under the guidance of the security guard, Chi Yu drove the car into the underground garage and found a parking space to park. Holding the steering wheel tightly with both hands, Chi Yu's heartbeat was rising rapidly. The palms of his hands holding the steering wheel were already full of cold sweat. He was very nervous, really nervous. Chi Yu, what are you doing? What's there to be nervous about? It's not a big deal. After comforting himself, Chi-Yu left the documents in his hand in the car, opened the door, and walked in the direction of the elevator. The security of the Jingu group was very tight. When Chi-Yu took the elevator to the first floor, the elevator had already stopped. The elevator from the underground could not directly enter the floor, so he had to take it again. As soon as he walked out of the elevator, a security guard had already come forward to stop him. "Hello, sir. Excuse me, are you a staff member of this company?" Chi-Yu shook his head subconsciously. The security guard glanced at his long white hair and said, "Then please come with me to register." Chi-Yu glanced at the security guard and tried to keep his emotions calm. He followed the security guard to the front desk of the hall for registration. At this time, he had a panoramic view of the main hall of the Jingu group. What a magnificent building! The height of the hall was more than 30 meters, and it was completely formed by a dome. Dozens of huge crystal lamps hung down from the air. The entire hall looked unusually spacious, and the lighting effect was very good. During the day, there was no need for lights to make the hall extremely bright. Under the guidance of the security guard, Chi-Yu walked to the front desk for registration. Just like in Kirin Group, when the receptionist at the front desk saw Chi-Yu's appearance, she could not hide the surprise in her eyes. She said gently, "Hello, sir. May I ask who are you looking for in this group? Do you have an appointment?" Chi-Yu shook his head and said, "I don't have an appointment. I'm looking for Mr. Chi Tianlei or Miss Ing Xiaodai." The receptionist was obviously shocked by Chi-Yu's words. Looking for the chairman and general manager? If it was not for Chi-Yu's noble temperament, the security guard and the receptionist would have kicked him out as a lunatic. The receptionist was still very professional. After a short moment of surprise, she quickly recovered and said with some embarrassment, "I'm really sorry, sir. Our chairman and general manager can only be seen if you have an appointment. You also need to make a special appointment in the CEO's office. Moreover, today is the weekend, so the chairman and general manager are not here. Do you need to make an appointment now?" Chi-Yu was stunned for a moment. "That's right. Today is the weekend. What's wrong with me? Why am I so impatient?" Chi-Yu's face turned red and said, "Then please make an appointment for me. I hope to see them as soon as possible." The receptionist nodded and said, "Sir, please leave your name, company, and contact information." As she said that, she handed a pen and paper to Chi-Yu. After Chi-Yu wrote down his name and phone number, he handed the paper to the receptionist and walked towards the elevator with some disappointment. When he just walked to the elevator, he subconsciously shrouded with his mental strength and heard the receptionist say to the security guard, "So it's another person who wants to find a relative. Why are there a few people like this every month? He looks quite elegant, but he's actually such a person." The security guard said, "It's no wonder. Who doesn't want to be the chairman's only son? That's a family property worth tens of billions of dollars. However, don't you think so? He really looks a bit like our chairman. If it weren't for his ordinary appearance, I would really believe it. I really don't know what these people are thinking. Such a person wants to see the chairman and the general manager. It's simply a fool's talk. He may not know that the chairman has long given up looking for his son." The receptionist said, "Yes. The president's office has instructed that as long as it's someone who comes to find a relative or claims to be Chi-Yu, it will be filtered out. Moreover, if he really wants to make an appointment to see the chairman, it's useless to ask me. He doesn't even have a company. It seems that our judgment is definitely correct." Chi-Yu's footsteps stopped, and his eyes flashed. Sure enough, he thought that he was a fake. Moreover, it seems that I'm not the first one to come to find a relative. A fire suddenly rose in his heart. Am I really that unbearable? Tens of billions of dollars is a lot, but compared to family love, what did this amount of money count for? Chi-Yu furiously turned around and walked towards the front desk once again in a fit of rage. Once his stubbornness came out, no one could stop him. He stopped in front of the receptionist and looked at the surprised receptionist. Chi-Yu said word by word, "I want to see your chairman or general manager. I won't leave before I see them." After saying this, Chi-Yu walked directly to the center of the Golden Grain building. He didn't look at the people around him and sat down with his legs crossed. He put his hands on his knees as if everything around him had nothing to do with him. Chi-Yu's action immediately attracted a large number of security guards. At least 10 security guards came to his side as fast as they could. "Sir, please don't do this. If you want to see our chairman, you need to make an appointment. The chairman and general manager are not here right now. Although it's the weekend, if you do this, it will affect the normal work of our group. Please leave immediately." "Thank you," the head security guard said to Chi-Yu politely. As the security guards of a large company, they were very polite. Chi-Yu didn't even bother to pay attention to these people. He still sat there quietly without saying a word. The head security guard said, "Sir, please don't make it difficult for us, okay? If you do this again, we will have to ask you to leave." He deliberately emphasized the word "please." It was obvious that he was telling Chi-Yu that if he didn't leave, he would be thrown out. Chi-Yu still didn't move. He still maintained his previous posture. His back was straight. Although he was sitting there with his eyes closed, his aura made the surrounding security guards not dare to easily pull him away. "Please ask this gentleman to leave." The head security guard could no longer tolerate Chi-Yu's disregard. Among the 10 security guards, 2 strong men immediately came to Chi-Yu's side. At the same time, they grabbed Chi-Yu's shoulder. To be able to enter a large company like Golden Grain Group, not just retired soldiers could do it. Most of these strong security guards were retired Special Forces soldiers, and they all had a lot of skills. However, the 2 security guards' swift grabs missed at the same time. It was as if Chi-Yu's body was air. Both of their hands brushed past him. Because they used the wrong amount of strength, they couldn't help but stagger and almost fall to the ground. The head security guard's expression changed slightly. He said, "Is he here to cause trouble? Everyone do it." They wouldn't call the police. If they did, as security guards, it would be too embarrassing. After confirming that Chi-Yu knew martial arts, he would naturally be classified as deliberately causing trouble. However, they were also very curious as to why the other party was alone. It was just that this was the first time they saw someone causing trouble in Golden Grain Group alone. All the security guards rushed at Chi-Yu at the same time, blocking all possible escape routes for Chi-Yu. Did Chi-Yu move? No. To ordinary people, Special Forces soldiers were definitely strong. However, in front of a real strong person, it was nothing at all. After listening to the words of the receptionist and the security guards, Chi-Yu had already made up his mind to see Chi Tianlei and Ing Xiaodai. Whether he was really their son or not, he had to see them. If he was not, he would leave immediately. If he was, then it was their business to say what they wanted. All he wanted was to find the family he had lost for 20 years. Without any miracle, when the security guards were half a foot away from Chi-Yu's body, they saw Chi-Yu's shoulder shake slightly. Everyone felt a sudden force coming from Chi-Yu's body. Like a flower blooming, the 10 security guards were thrown out at the same time, falling at least 5 meters in all directions. 18 stain falls was Uncle Zhou's unique skill. Although Chi-Yu had not really practiced it, with his current ability, he could easily use any martial arts in his hands. Of course, it was impossible for Chi-Yu to really fight with these ordinary people. Although he used a trace of energy, his control was very precise. It only temporarily made these security guards lose their ability to move, and they would recover after a while. Although it was the weekend, there were still many people working in the Golden Grain Group. The sudden situation in the hall immediately attracted the attention of many company employees. The receptionist saw that the situation was not good, and quickly called the police. The security guards got up one after another after 10 minutes. Although there were more security guards gathered here, at this time, no one dared to make a move on Chiyu. The security guards who were on duty in the hall were all extraordinary in the Golden Grain group. This time, 10 people were defeated by Chiyu in an instant, and he did not even raise his hand. The security guards knew that this black-clothed, white-haired man was not someone they could deal with. Chiyu sat there quietly. Compared to the spacious and huge hall, it was nothing. However, the aura exuded from his body was so majestic that no one dared to ignore it. The action of the Beijing police was still very fast, and it was a big company like the Golden Grain Group who called the police. After a while, the sound of police sirens came from outside. With a burst of hurried footsteps, at least a dozen police officers came in from outside. "Where is the troublemaker?" A low voice came. "Over here." Under the guidance of the security guards, the dozen police officers came to Chiyu's side. When the leader saw Chiyu, he could not help but be surprised and said, "How can it be you?" Chiyu felt a familiar aura. He slowly opened his eyes and saw that in front of him was actually Li Yang, who he had just met not long ago, who had pursued Shang Bing. He frowned slightly. "It's you? Are you arresting me?" Li Yang was filled with shock when he saw Chiyu. Ever since the last time he saw Chiyu, Shang Bing had disappeared. Even now, Li Yang wanted to find Shang Bing's whereabouts. Although he also wanted to track down Shang Bing's whereabouts, he knew that as the possessor of the Diamond Guardian medal, even if Chiyu really left with Shang Bing, no one could say anything about it. Not long ago, Chiyu had told him that if he wanted to improve his strength, he needed to defeat himself first. His words were still echoing in his ears, and he did not expect to meet him again so soon. "Are you the troublemaker they're talking about?" Li Yang asked subconsciously. Chiyu said indifferently, "That's what they think. I don't think I'm causing trouble. If you want to arrest me, you can try. However, I will not leave this place before I see the person I want to see." What an arrogant guy! How dare he talk to our Inspector Li like that? "Take him away, take him back to the station first." A police officer had already taken out handcuffs from his clothes. However, he was immediately stopped by Li Yang. Li Yang waved his hand and said, "You guys go back to the car first." The police officers were stunned. In their hearts, Li Yang was definitely a man of iron in the police world. When he was carrying out a mission, he never hesitated at all. Especially after he returned from the test of the Taklamakan Desert, he became the pride of the entire police world. If it wasn't for the fact that the Golden Grain Group had called the police today, he wouldn't have needed to come here. However, when Li Yang faced the young man sitting on the ground, his voice actually carried a hint of respect, which was difficult for these police officers to understand. However, the police officers were still very good at carrying out their superiors' orders. They did not ask any more questions and walked out of the Golden Grain building with doubts. The security manager walked to Li Yang's side. He was also familiar with Li Yang and asked doubtfully, "Inspector Li, do you know this person?" Li Yang nodded and said, "Did you call the police because of him? You said he came here to cause trouble?" The security manager said, "That's him. It's really embarrassing to talk about it. Just now, 10 of us went up at the same time, but we still couldn't take him down. So, we can only rely on you guys." Li Yang glanced at Chiyu, who had closed his eyes again, and said, "I want to know the specifics of what is going on." The security manager briefly explained what had happened. After listening to him, Li Yang's expression changed. He patted the security manager's shoulder and said, "Brother, I'm sorry. We, the police, can't handle this matter." Inspector Li, is there something you can't handle?" The security manager was a little confused. It was the first time he heard Li Yang speak in such a tone. They knew each other for more than a day or two. Li Yang said earnestly, "I can tell you 2 things. First, this person is not someone that we, or even the entire Yanhuang police, can arrest. Second, from what I know of him, he would never pretend to be a relative." Even if a mountain of gold was placed in front of him, it would still be impossible. The best thing for you to do now is to do as he says and find your chairman. I know your chairman is very busy. However, this person's identity is not to be trifled with. Even if he really does something here, he won't have to take responsibility. Li Yang was very clear about the concept of having the diamond protection medal. There was only one place that could punish Qiyu, or rather, have the right to judge Qiyu, and that was the State Council of the Yanhuang Republic. Under normal circumstances, having the diamond protection medal was equivalent to having extremely high privileges in Yanhuang. Every person who obtained the diamond protection medal had to go through countless examinations before being approved. In terms of privileges, how could a person with the diamond protection medal care about money? The security manager looked at Li Yang's back as he left, and he suddenly panicked. This young man with a head of white hair sitting on the floor was definitely not ordinary. Li Yang's words had already made him understand a lot of things. At that moment, he hurriedly asked his subordinates to continue watching over Qiyu, and he himself went to report to the higher-ups. The quality of the Golden Valley Group's employees was still very high. Although Qiyu looked very different sitting in the middle of the hall, most people only took a few quick glances at him and immediately went to do their own things. Not long after, under the guidance of the security manager, a middle-aged man who looked to be in his 40s came to the hall and quickly walked up to Qiyu. "Hello, Mr. Qi, I wonder if we can talk for a while." The middle-aged man saw Qiyu and could not help but be secretly surprised. He thought to himself that this young man was indeed somewhat similar to the CEO in terms of appearance and temperament. It was just that his appearance looked a little more ordinary. It was still not easy to believe that he was the child that the CEO and his wife had lost back then. After all, the CEO and his wife's appearance was very outstanding, and this young man was a little lacking. Qiyu said indifferently, "Are you someone who can make decisions?" The middle-aged man said, "I am the first secretary in the CEO's office, Chen Xian. Some of the CEO's affairs are arranged by me. I apologize for the employee's previous rashness. Now, can I invite Mr. Qi to sit in the conference room with me? I will try to contact the CEO as soon as possible. At the very least, I can let you speak to the CEO through a video phone. How about that?" Qiyu slowly opened his eyes and looked at Chen Xian in front of him. He nodded and said, "All right." He stood up and walked into the building under Chen Xian's lead. Updated by Tao Taro. Chapter 237. Qiyu wasn't in the mood to pay attention to his surroundings. Chen Xian led him directly to a conference room on the 110th floor of the Golden Grain Building. The conference room wasn't big. It looked like it could only accommodate about 10 people. But the facilities inside were very complete. Chen Xian gestured to Qiyu to sit down and said, "Mr. Qi, please wait here for a moment. I will immediately contact the president. Once I get in touch, I will inform you. If people respect me, I will respect them tenfold." This had always been Qiyu's style of doing things. Since Chen Xian was being so polite, he naturally would not use the methods of a ruffian. He nodded and said, "Please hurry, thank you." Chen Xian left, closing the door before leaving only Qiyu in the entire conference room. If it was any other time, waiting in such a quiet environment, Qiyu would definitely start cultivating. Any moment was an opportunity to improve his strength. However, how could he calm his heart down now? Although he also knew that what he did just now was inappropriate. But he had no choice. He suddenly received news of his parent. How eager he was to immediately confirm the reliability of this news. At this time, his emotions were mixed. He couldn't tell what he was feeling. While Qiyu waited quietly, a group of uninvited guests came to the lobby of the Golden Grain Building. More than 20 people in repairman uniforms walked into the lobby with toolboxes in their hand. These people all looked very gloomy. Looking at the security guard who came to greet them, the leader waved his hand behind him. The group stopped. "Excuse me, are you here for maintenance?" the security guard asked politely. The leader nodded and said, "Yes. We have been notified that we are here for routine maintenance of your company's elevator." The security guard nodded. "Please wait a moment. I will immediately inform the people from the engineering department to receive you." The leader nodded. Looking at the security guard who left, he naturally put his right hand to his mouth. His calm and deep voice came through the wireless microphone. Group 1 and 2, respectively, block the underground passage connecting the main building and the auxiliary building. Group 3, control the underground parking lot. No one is allowed to enter or leave. Group 4, control the main entrance. Groups 5 to 10, get ready to charge in with me. Special team, get ready. Evacuate immediately after capturing the target. No mistake. After saying this, he led the 20 or so people behind him and walked inside. "What are you doing?" Maintenance personnel are not allowed to enter the staff passage to take the elevator. A security guard stopped the crowd from moving forward. However, the only reply he got was a puff. The black muzzle of the silencer left a shocking mark on the security guard's chest. The receptionist, who was very close to the security guard, immediately realized that something was wrong. Cannot help but scream birth. The 20 or so people who had been working on the repair site all took out their own weapons from their toolboxes. There were long and short guns, and they suddenly formed a net of fire in the hall. Their marksmanship was extremely accurate, and the net of fire only lasted for a few moments. Apart from them, no one else was left standing in the hall. At this time, the gate had been blocked by 10 people. All of their weapons were equipped with silencers. During the massacre, they didn't even break a single poly in the hall. As if the 20 or so people they had just killed were just ants, the criminals didn't stop at all and went straight to the staff passage. As soon as they entered the elevator, they immediately pressed the button for the top floor. The elevator was very large, just enough to accommodate all of them. However, to their surprise, the button for the top floor didn't light up, and the elevator remained in place. Pursing his lips, the leader snorted. "That's all the security measures you have? Lao San, I'll leave it to you. 20 seconds. Yes." A skinny man jumped out from behind and took off the hat on his head. It turned out to be a black man. He had a pair of very dexterous hands. He took out a strange-looking device from his toolbox and quickly connected it to the elevator. He seemed to be adjusting something through radio wave. 20 seconds passed quickly. With a soft ding, the indicator light for the 120th floor lit up. The high-speed elevator immediately took these people to the top floor. Without warning, sirens sounded throughout the entire building. After all, the Golden Grain Building was the headquarters of the Golden Grain Group, so the security measures were very good. Although these criminals moved very quickly, the cameras hidden in the corners of the hall still recorded their movements. The security guard in the surveillance room didn't act immediately. As a special forces soldier, he could see that these people were obviously extremely professional mercenaries. He first called the police, then sounded the siren in the building. All the security guards of the Golden Grain Group quickly gathered under the leadership of the security manager. They also had guns, but of course, unlike the criminals, their guns were legal. Chiyu was sitting in the conference room when he suddenly heard the siren. He couldn't help but be startled. He thought to himself, "Are they here to deal with me? No, it can't be." Liang had already made it very clear. He didn't have a real conflict with the people of the Golden Grain Building, and they wouldn't sound the alarm of the entire building just for him. It seemed that something had happened. On the 120th floor of the top floor of the Golden Grain Building, in a gorgeous office, a woman in her late 20s in a blue business suit was pointing at the whiteboard next to her and teaching an economics lesson to the girl on the sofa in front of her. If Chiyu were here, he would definitely be surprised to recognize her. The woman giving the lesson was Yu Guan, who he had just separated from not long ago. At this time, Yu Guan had a pair of gold-rimmed glasses on her face, making her look a bit more scholarly. And sitting on the sofa in front of her was a 16 or 17-year-old girl. She looked mischievous, with a pair of beautiful big eyes full of slyness. "Big sister Yuguan, let's rest for a while, okay? I have some chocolate that Dad brought from Italy, do you want to eat some?" The girl looked at Yuguan with a flattering look. Yuguan snappily said, "Ying, I've told you many times you have to call me teacher in class. We haven't even learned for a few minutes, why are you being naughty again? Teacher is very busy with work. If it wasn't for me owing your dad a favor, I really wouldn't have much time. Be obedient, we'll finish these lessons. Then you can go do your homework." Ying put on a pitiful look and said, "Big sister Yuguan, if I call you teacher, wouldn't I be calling you old? Let me go. You also know that I only know 9 out of 10 things about economics, I don't understand a single thing. I'm just rotten wood can't be carved, so don't make it hard for me. My dad and mom also know that I'm not made for this." Yuguan helplessly sighed. She said, "What can we do? Who told you to be their only heir? Do you have the heart to see your dad and mom work hard for their entire life, not have anyone to inherit their business? No one is born with knowledge. As long as you are willing to learn, you will definitely be able to do it." Right at this time, an ear-piercing alarm suddenly rang out, scaring Yuguan and the girl called Ying. Yuguan's expression slightly changed. It wasn't the first time she came to the Golden Grain Building, but this was the first time she had heard this alarm. Her heart couldn't help feeling a bit suspicious. Ying and Yuguan's reactions were completely different, as if they had discovered a new continent. "Alarm! Is there something fun going on? I'll go take a look." Saying this, she jumped up from the sofa. She turned around to run outside. "You can't go." Yuguan quickly pulled her back. "You little girl. I really don't know why you aren't calm like your dad at all. Stay here, I'll go take a look." As Yuguan said this, there were already pitiful cries coming from outside, followed by the sound of gunfire. The top floor of the Golden Grain Building was the CEO's office. There were 10 security guards, but they were already fighting with the bandit. Because of the alarm, they didn't have time to prepare their weapons. For a time, there was a large net of crossfire in the corridor outside. It was a good thing that this office was very sturdy and had a bulletproof design. So even though the gunfire outside was dense, it didn't really affect the people inside. Quickly, Ying. Yuguan was worthy of being a heroine, not panicking in the face of danger. She grabbed Ying's hand and ran inside. There was a special room inside that was also bulletproof. She ran in with Ying and immediately locked the door. Her heartbeat sped up and Yuguan's face turned a bit pale. "Big sister Yuguan, is there a police movie outside? It seems like gunfire." Ying curiously looked at her. Yuguan didn't pay attention to her at this time. She quickly took out her mobile phone from her pocket. Her hand was trembling. Fortunately, Zhang Qiuxiao's phone was set to speed dial. "Hello, Qiuxiao? I have an accident here. It seems that there are bandits coming. I don't know if the security outside can stop them. If something happens to me, you have to avenge me." Although Yuguan was a strong woman, but facing the possibility of death, she was still nervous and her voice trembled. Zhang Qiuxiao on the other side was stunned when he heard Yuguan's voice. Then he immediately reacted and said, What did you say? Where are you now? Did you call the police?" Yuguan incoherently told him where she was. "I don't know what's going on here. Maybe they came to seek revenge. But the security guards must have called the police. I just don't know if I can hold on until the police come." Guan, you must hold on. You said you are in the Golden Grain Building. Chiyu can also be there. Well, don't ask these first. You stay in the CEO's office and don't move. I will contact Chiyu immediately. Maybe he has a way. Zhang Qiuxiao immediately hung up the phone with Yuguan and called Chiyu. Although Zhang Qiuxiao didn't know how much ability Chiyu had, but several contacts with Chi Yu made him understand that Chi Yu was definitely not an ordinary person. This could be easily seen from the last auction when Chi Yu was able to take out the Ice Jade Soul Ring. He just gave him the information related to Chi Yu's identity. With Chi Yu's character, he might be near the Golden Grain Building. As the saying goes, if you are sick, you will turn to any doctor. At this time, he couldn't care too much. Chi Yu heard the alarm outside, but did not leave the conference room. He just began to scan the entire building with his spiritual force. The gunshots on the 120th floor immediately attracted his attention. Just as he was wondering if he should go and see what happened, Zhang Qiuxiao's phone call came. What? You said Sister Yu Guan is up there. Well, okay, I got it. Don't worry, brother-in-law. Leave it to me. Chi Yu didn't give Zhang Qiuxiao a chance to speak. After hanging up the phone, he immediately floated out of the conference room. He didn't take the elevator because he knew that it would take a certain amount of time to wait for the elevator in a 120-story building. Moreover, the criminals were likely to have blocked the elevator. In a few seconds, Chi Yu found the stairs. He covered his body with the thundercloud force and went upstairs like a wisp of smoke. When Chi Yu was about to reach the 120th floor, he suddenly heard a loud bang. His heart suddenly tightened. In a flash, he directly hit the staircase leading to the 120th floor. Normally, there would be people guarding this place. However, the security guards were involved in the battle with the criminals. With Chi Yu's strength, it was naturally easy for him to break the door. The 120th floor was decorated very luxuriously, mainly with silver and some harmonious colors. At this time, the entire corridor was a mess. Bullet holes could be seen everywhere. There were nearly 20 corpses lying on the ground. Some were dressed as security guards, and some were dressed as maintenance workers. At the end of the corridor, a door had been blown open, and the smell of gunpowder assaulted his nostrils. A cold light flashed in Chi Yu's eyes. The next moment, his figure appeared where the door was. Tao Taro National Day Special Update. The loud noise outside caused Yu Guan and Yingying's bodies to tremble at the same time. They both understood that this was the sign of the outside door being blown open. A bulletproof door could defend against bullets, but it might not be able to defend against bombs. At this time, Yingying also understood that the real crisis had arrived. She was trembling in fear and hid in Yu Guan's arms. Her face was pale and she couldn't speak. With another bang and a cloud of smoke filling the air, the door to the inner room was also blown open. The leader of the criminals looked at the exploded door and couldn't help but feel a little excited. The power of the plastic bomb was really good. According to the information, the target was on the top floor. Now, only this room could be hiding someone. The police were probably coming, but what was the use? He was about to succeed. Just as he expected, as the door was blown open, 2 screams rang out at the same time. The remaining dozen criminals rushed into the room at the same time, pointing their black muzzles at the 2 women in front of them. Facing these criminals dressed as maintenance workers, Yu Guan calmed down. She was like a mother protecting her child, blocking Yingying behind her. What are you doing? Killing people in broad daylight, aren't you afraid of being punished by the law? The leader of the criminals glanced at Yu Guan. The large-caliber pistol in his hand was already raised. Time was pressing and he didn't want to waste it. Sparks erupted from the barrel of the gun. Under the effect of the silencer, a penetrating armor-piercing bullet shot out of the barrel and went straight for Yu Xiong's heart. When Yu Guan heard the gunshot, she had already subconsciously closed her eyes. She knew that she was finished. Hey, why doesn't it hurt? Could it be that people don't feel anything when they die? Yu Guan subconsciously opened her eyes. She suddenly found that she didn't know when there was another person in front of her. His tall back looked so imposing, with broad shoulders. Black clothes and white hair, they were all so familiar. Chi Yu, it was Chi Yu. Among the people that Yu Guan knew, only Chi Yu was like this. Chi Yu, yes, at that critical moment Chi Yu finally arrived. When he rushed into the room, the bullet had already been fired. There was no other way. Chi Yu could only rely on his extraordinary speed, using his tall body to block in front of Yu Guan. Chi Yu's cold voice sounded, "Sister Yu Guan. Don't move. Close your eyes." She didn't know why, but Chi Yu's commanding tone sounded so beautiful in Yu Guan's ears. She turned around, hugged Ying into her arms, and subconsciously closed her eyes. Chi Yu coldly looked at the leader of the criminals in front of him. And the other party also looked at him in surprise. Using his body to block a bullet, was he still human? Moreover, it was loaded in his magazine. But armor-piercing bullets. A small round hole appeared in Chi Yu's black shirt, revealing the bronze skin inside. Without a bulletproof vest, even if it was a bulletproof vest, as long as it wasn't a high-tech product, it couldn't block a copper-core armor-piercing bullet. However, the white-haired man in front of him did it. With a soft sound, a bullet turned into a piece of iron slipped from Chi Yu's shirt and fell to the ground. Perhaps it was because of the excessive tension. All the criminals pulled the trigger of the guns in their hands almost at the same time. For a moment, the whole room was suddenly filled with gunshots. Even with a silencer, the sound of the bullets was still so clear in the room. Chi Yu didn't move because he couldn't move. Behind him was Yu Guan. A silver light appeared in front of him without warning, the faint light condensing into a circular shield. The shield was very large, with Chi Yu as the center, completely protecting the surrounding area of several square meters. No matter what kind of bullets, when they bombarded the thin silver shield, they could only create a faint circle of ripples, but there was no possibility of them penetrating it. A trace of killing intent flashed in Chi Yu's eyes. Although he was not willing to use his ability on ordinary people, these ordinary people in front of him had already threatened his friends. Yu Guan was not only Zhang Jiuxiao's fiancé, but also an employee of Kirin Group. Moreover, these criminals had already killed so many people. Would Chi Yu hesitate to kill? Of course not. A cold snort came out of Chi Yu's mouth. Kirin's aura surged with the incomparable gunshots, and the huge pressure caused the gunshots to stop abruptly. The criminals all looked at Chi Yu with pale faces, including the leader. They couldn't even say a word. They were indeed professional mercenaries, but unfortunately, they were too unlucky today. Just as they were about to achieve their goal, they had encountered Chi Yu. A white light floated up from Chi Yu's head. It was a strand of hair. Under the exquisite control of Chi Yu's thundercloud force, the strand of white hair instantly split into more than 10 pieces in the air. In the next moment, they had already sunk in between the eyebrows of the criminals in front of them. Looking at the shocked faces of the criminals who had already lost all signs of life and fallen to the ground, the light in Chi Yu's eyes became even colder. Even the young talents of the 4 great families of the East could not withstand his hair, let alone these ordinary people. Were their skulls very hard? In front of Kirin's white hair that was filled with thundercloud force, it did not have the slightest effect. The way these criminals died was the same. Their brains were instantly pierced, and Kirin's thundercloud force completely broke the nerves in their brains. It seemed to be the most complete way to die and also the fastest way to die. The cold lines on his face gradually softened. Chi Yu naturally did not care about killing a few people. He turned around to face Yu Guan. "All right, it's fine now. Sister Yu Guan, are you injured?" Ying's head popped out from behind Yu Guan's shoulder. She looked at Chi Yu with curiosity and worship. "Ah, did you subdue them?" Looking at this little girl, Chi Yu's eyes suddenly lit up. The eyes of this girl in front of him were so clear, and what surprised him even more was that this girl actually gave him a strong electric shock. This was not the feeling between a man and a woman, but an indescribable feeling. It was as if the two of them had known each other for a long, long time. Yu Guan's stiff body slowly turned around. When she saw the fallen criminals, she couldn't help but let out a cry of surprise. "Heavens! Chi Yu, did you defeat all of them?" Chi Yu smiled slightly and said, "Sister Yu Guan, did you forget? I am Ryua's bodyguard. If I don't have some ability, how can I protect Ryua? Yu Guan let out a big sigh of relief. She and Yingying did not see that the criminals on the ground had already lost their lives. At this moment, the entire building was surrounded by continuous gunshot. The police had actually been here for a while, but they encountered the stubborn resistance of the criminals. They simply could not rush in. Chi-Yu, you're injured. Yu Guan suddenly saw the bullet hole in Chi-Yu's shirt. She suddenly remembered the scene where she thought she was dead when the criminal fired the gun. It wasn't that the bullet didn't bring her pain, but the man in front of her used his own body to block the bullet. Look at the location of the bullet hole on his body. Combined with the height difference between her and Chi-Yu, if the bullet was fired, then the result would be her heart being pierced. Her eyes revealed a strong sense of gratitude. She took a step forward and raised her hand to touch the bullet hole in Chi-Yu's shirt. Chi-Yu took a step back and avoided Yu Guan's hand. He did not want to be misunderstood by Zhang Qiuxiao. Don't worry, I'm fine. I've always had rough skin and thick flesh. Let's get out of here first. It's a mess here. As he spoke, Chi-Yu turned and walked outside. Yingying looked at Chi-Yu's back and then looked at Yu Guan beside her. She asked in a low voice, Sister Yu Guan, is he Superman? Yu Guan's expression was a bit blank. I don't know if he is Superman or not, I only know that he saved our lives. Chi-Yu stood at the door, waiting for Yu Guan to come out holding Yingying's hand before he said, Sister Yu Guan, you should thank Big Brother Qiuxiao. If it wasn't for him notifying me in time, I wouldn't have been able to coincidentally come and save you. There's no need to thank me, this is what I should do. Yu Guan rolled her eyes at him and said, Even if you want me to thank you, I don't know what to thank you with. How about I repay you with my body? Chi-Yu was shocked. He quickly waved his hands and said, Please don't, I don't want Big Brother Qiuxiao to fight me. Yu Guan looked at Chi-Yu's panicked appearance and couldn't help giggling. Fine, I'll give you my life anyways in Kirin Group. Where do we go now? There are still gunshots outside. I'm afraid it's not safe yet. If my guess isn't wrong, these criminals are here for Yingying. After all, she is Chairman Qi's only daughter. Hearing Yu Guan's last words, the muscles on Chi-Yu's face slightly trembled. So this girl was Qi Tianlei and Ying Xiaodie's daughter. If they were really his parents, then wouldn't she be his little sister? Could all of this be true? Otherwise, why did he have such a strong feeling when he saw her for the first time? Deeply looking at Qi Yingying, Chi-Yu suppressed the emotional fluctuations in his heart and said, No matter what danger there is, as long as I'm here, nothing will happen to you. Come with me. Chi-Yu brought the two girls up the stairs and returned to the meeting room he had just rested in on the 110th floor. After closing the door, Chi-Yu said, It's a lot cleaner here. Miss Qi, do your family have a lot of enemies? Qi Yingying looked at Chi-Yu curiously, just like how Chi-Yu had a special feeling. Although she didn't have as sensitive a spiritual power as Chi-Yu, she vaguely felt that the tall young man in front of her was full of friendly feelings. Enemies? We don't have enemies. I don't know. Your name is Chi-Yu, right? That name sounds familiar. Qi Yingying looked at Chi-Yu thoughtfully. Chi-Yu felt a slight pain in his heart. As he became more and more convinced that the information Zhang Xiaoxiao gave him was indeed his real identity, the uneasiness in his heart became more and more intense. In addition to desire, there was also a bit of fear. Even if there was only a 1 in 10,000 chance that his guess was wrong, he didn't want to suffer the pain of losing what he had gained. So he kept convincing himself, telling himself that all of this was just a fantasy. It wasn't real. Ah, I remember now. Mom and Dad said that I used to have a brother named Chi-Yu. But these years, it seems that many people say that he is my brother. Is it the same for you? Perhaps because Qi Tianlei and Ying Xiaodai were too protective of their daughter, Qi Yingying, who didn't have much contact with society, looked particularly innocent. Chi-Yu smiled bitterly, shook his head and said, I don't know. I can only be sure after I meet your parents. Now that it's safe here, you guys rest here. I'll go out and have a look. The gunfight outside was not over yet, and he still had a lot of things to deal with. He didn't want to wait any longer and rely on the power of the police. As the owner of the Diamond Guardian medal, it was his duty to fight for the country and eliminate the criminals. "Chi-Yu, don't go!" Yu Guan exclaimed. Chi-Yu was stunned, looked back at her, and said, "Is there anything else?" Yu Guan's pretty face blushed, and she stammered, If you leave, what if the bad guys come again?" Chi-Yu shook his head helplessly and said, "Don't worry, it won't happen. I've already checked just now. The criminals who really went upstairs have all been killed. The rest of the criminals are dealing with the police downstairs. Don't worry, I'll be back soon." Of course, he wouldn't tell Yu Guan that his psychic power was more accurate than radar. Moreover, when he left, he deliberately used his psychic power to connect with Yu Guan and Qi Yingying. As long as there was a problem on their side, Qi-Yu could rush over in the shortest time possible. Outside the conference room, Qi-Yu calmed himself down, and the coldness reappeared on his face. He still didn't take the elevator, and his smoke-like figure floated into the corridor. Li Yang was furious. After receiving the report, he immediately returned to the Golden Grain building with a large number of police officers. Of course, he knew that this couldn't have been caused by Qi-Yu, but the number of criminals and the fierceness of the firepower far exceeded his expectations. There were more than 100 of these criminals, and they were also equipped with high-specification weapons of mass destruction such as rocket launchers. After all, the number of police officers was limited, and the number of people gathered here in such a short time was not even as many as the number of people on the other side. Moreover, the powerful firepower of the criminals had caused them a lot of damage. Although he had asked the higher-ups for the deployment of the armed police force, it was obvious that the criminals had already occupied the entire building. After all, there were a lot of employees in the Golden Grain building. Once the other side took these employees as hostages, it would be a serious problem. Such a huge number of casualties in the city was definitely a great shame for the police. Tao Taro National Day Special Update.